This is the final episode of the 6th season of Creative Recharge podcast. I'm so glad you're here with us, listening, and hopefully even participating in our conversation. We're going to be talking about Gene Wilder, the actor, the writer, the director, the person. And to help me, fantastic people, you know him. I love him. It is my producer and also familial best friend, Tom. And then, very excited as well, the fantastic, the talented, the highly opinionated, the scholarly Charlie, and their chaos demon is somewhere around. I just heard them.
He started running water in the kitchen really, really loud. So I don't know what's going to be happening.
Come on. My chaos demon is running the dishwasher right now.
The chaos is real.
So.
At least I have my emotional support demon.
I guess I should be grateful that he's also not running the washing machine as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that, Chekhov? Yes, one chaos demon to another. Yeah, what a good idea. What a great time to get some laundry done. Hello and welcome. Yes, Brain for Chaos Demon. Brian too for Chaos Demon President. Yes, absolutely. Hello, Jenna.
Hello.
I mean, at this point, because of the similarity, whenever we play Valheim on Thursdays, honestly, when I hear the Fullings' laughter and chuckle, I just think, oh, look, it's the offspring of Brian.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I feel that.
Running rampant with fire.
That checks.
Why the good Lord saved the earth? We're procreating.
I'm not repeating that.
Take the take.
Nope.
Oh my goodness. The topic today is so near and dear to my heart.
You know, I have really had my eyes open this week watching Gene Wilder because, if I'm brutally honest, I really haven't watched much of his work since I was a young person. Like in the last 20 years, I have not really watched Gene Wilder's movies that much, partly because, to be perfectly honest, they remind me a lot of my family and my parents and my mother in particular, as well as my Uncle Mark, my mother's brother. And it was a little heartbreaking. It was, huh? What?
A little close to home.
It was a little close to home. And also, I was trying as a young person to kind of step out on my own and figure out who I am rather than looking back. But I guess now that I am in my middle age, here we are. And I really came to see the art and the artfulness in every one of his movies, at least the ones that I had a chance to watch this week. There were some lesser known movies of his I did not get a chance to watch, partly because we're not able to secure a copy till very late this week. So I didn't even know he was in some movie called Quaxer.
Quaxner Fortune has a cousin in Brooklyn.
What a strange name.
Where he plays Irish.
Yeah. Okay.
It almost feels like some form of, color face.
Yeah. I mean, what would you call that? Whiteface?
I mean,
Potato face.
I mean, in honesty, when did the Irish only became white? Like about 100 or so years ago. So, potato face?
Yeah.
Hey, Spence.
So, for me, the thing that when you look at Gene Wilder's comedies, that I have always taken a lot of inspiration from, is his characters very often show how do you actually do that thing where they say, "Don't let your inner child die."
Yeah.
Because they are very childish, but they are adult. There is an adult knowing where you can see this isn't random, I don't know what I'm doing, childhood actions, but purposeful mischief that's keeping that childhood spirit alive. Like you can see that glimmer in his eyes that to me is kind of, especially in the comedies, and it is peppered throughout Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that glimmer in his eyes. And you see this in a lot of his work with Mel Brooks of, oh, I got you now. Like I got you now. And a lot of that came from him and his wonderful relationship with Gilda Radner, which I think we're probably going to be talking about quite a bit. But also the fact that he was given the freedom when it wasn't normal in Hollywood to do, to ad-lib a lot of things for the camera. And you can kind of see when he has that moment of, oh, I've got the line.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's actually Gene having the moment of mischief that comes out as the character having that moment of mischief.
Mm.
And that authenticity is something that is so precious and makes some of the outlandish characters that he plays feel so grounded and real, because you can see this authentic, oh, I gotcha moment in his eyes right before delivering the great line or doing the amazing moment of physical comedy or whatever the thing was that suddenly occurred to him to do, or to deliver the line in a particular way that completely changes the meaning.
I'll say it kind of it reminded me a lot of stand-up comedians talk about the unappreciated art of stand-up comedy is not writing the joke. Everyone gets the art of writing that joke, and they appreciate that you wrote that joke. The real special art, though, of stand-up comedy is being able to deliver it every night like you just thought of it. So the audience can join you in this fresh thought.
Yeah, in this delight of, oh, I've got a zinger.
Of how, versus you have, in truth, said this same line by the time the audience hears it, in a professional manner, hundreds of times. You have to still be able to, every time, deliver it fresh. And that was what Gene could do. Mm-hmm. Gene could, every time, deliver this line like it was the first time he'd ever spoken or thought it.
And even in movies like Young Frankenstein, where he has to deliver some of the most ridiculous dialogue that has ever been devised by the hearts of man, there's this, like, he sells it in a way that makes you go past all of the, wait, did he just really say that? And just, you're in it, you're locked in. There, more than anything else, and this goes through all of his work, there is an authenticity to Gene Wilder that kind of, in a way, makes him almost the patron saint of this current generation that is all about authenticity. Like, Gene Wilder brings something special to whatever role he's in, whether it is a happy role, a sad role, whatever it is, he just shows up in a way that very few actors did. And it's sad why he went away for a while, but that also is just true to his character. Like, when I think of Gene Wilder, it's just that he is somebody who actually did the thing where he tried to be his best self as often as he could, hoping that he was right and knowing when he failed.
Mm-hmm.
Something Gloria and I were discussing earlier this week, and after watching these and understanding Gene Wilder's thoughts and history, better understood now why Gene Wilder was Mel Brooks' muse. Because Mel Brooks thought he was edgy, but he was edgy for someone who had never really known hunger. And here comes Gene, who is truly just, balls to the wall. Go on. Give me a line I won't say. I dare you. Constantly. And there's Mel trying his hardest of like, all right, well, what about this? How about this? What do I put you in this situation? And there's Gene every time going, aw, it's so cute. I'll go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, no, here's a better one. But, like, he really drove Mel to, as far as his art could take him at the time. Like Mel had to keep growing to keep up with Gene, because Gene was just like, this is not anything worth worrying about that you are worried about. I mean, Gloria and I watched a interview on 92nd Street Y with, the main people behind History of the World Part 2.
Well, some of them.
Yeah, it's true. Wanda
Holtz
Sykes wasn't there.
and Nick Kroll.
Yeah.
Which is up on YouTube for anyone else who'd like to watch it. It's just, I think, about an hour long. Richard Kind is the moderator. And, and it's I think only about an hour long. But it is definitely worth the watch.
But one of the things we both noticed, and we're like, wait, what? Is that when they were asked, were there any bits that you had to hold back on, or was there anything? And it's like, no. In truth, Mel still had ideas he wanted to do that he was afraid to do 50 years ago. And you hear the bits he was worried about, and you're just like, really, this is what you're worried people would be offended by? A bit of slapstick at the signing of Appomattox.
Which you can see, actually, in History of the World Part 2.
And here's them also having this. Here's Nick Kroll going, really? This is really? Okay, no, we're just putting that in. I'm not even discussing it. We're just putting that in.
Right,
But of Mel, definitely.
Wanda Sykes was not available, I gather, for this one, unfortunately.
I mean, that would have been
freaking. They would have had to add another hour.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking.
Queen needs an hour and all to herself.
But versus Gene Wilder, never had an edge, in part because his childhood and growing up, he had a bunch of rough times, and he had come to realize, welcome to life. You only get one chance. There is no justice. Enjoy what you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then in his early life, relatively, in his late 20s, all of a sudden, he was white. He went from being a person of color.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that even European Jews were considered not white until the 60s. No, I think Gene was actually in his 30s then, because I think he was born in 1933.
And we see this change in the comedy and the way all of his characters, so whenever you see, like, I noticed this because Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor movies. Richard Pryor, his character is always trying to speak to authority. That is his comedy. That is what he is trying to do throughout. Why? Because he is still a minority. Gene Wilder's character is now always a character who is trying to take authority, because he's now at the table and he is not going to be, silenced by anyone else. He is, he has been sat at the table. He is going to make it for everything it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the, juxtaposition between the two, and why they made such an interesting comedy pair. Was you had someone who had lived their childhood and, young adulthood as a person of color and was now considered white. And they were like, oh no, I know all of what's going on. I'm going to make sure everyone else has to deal with it because I had to.
Mm-hmm.
Which is how he was able to bring the pathos to a lot of those characters that they really needed to stand up to what at times was very harsh criticism that Richard Pryor was bringing. I mean, Richard Pryor was very in your face with a lot of, I don't want to say, I'm not criticizing, there was a lack of nuance or subtlety. That was the point, that there wasn't that lack of subtlety. Everybody was doing the story with subtlety, and people weren't getting it. And so Richard Pryor was like, oh, if you're not going to get the subtle, here, bam.
Let me turn the volume up.
Yeah, right in.
Here's a bullhorn.
And I think that a lot of audiences would not have been able to get into that if it wasn't for the way Gene Wilder humanized Richard Pryor and gave white audiences that were not willing or ready to hear a lot of what Richard Pryor had to say.
And Gene kind of did that in a lot of his movies. I mean, he also did it for Cleavon Little.
Yeah.
I believe so, Cleavon Little.
In Blazing Saddles. Again, his character was there to humanize Cleavon. and he did a good job. And we see that, throughout of Gene's character. Gene, acting and the way he played his character was never afraid to take a step back and let the person who actually knew what they were doing do their job and use their knowledge.
And it's important to point out what a rare talent that is, because you can see a lot of attempts at that, especially in this time period where people were wanting to do more of the socially conscious story and more of the, like, there's a message. My film has a message, and it becomes very white-splaining in that the white character is the one that has to explain all of the bad things, as if the African American or other minority characters don't understand. And that's
the problem.
Yeah.
Of Kevin Hart and the Rock movies.
And I feel like that's what he did best, is that he knew that was not his role. He didn't have the ego that a lot of other actors would have had, and was able to step back and be like, no, this is not my story. Here's where the real attention needs to be. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the real sign of a superstar in my book.
Oh, yeah, he had no problem going out on that edge and dangling himself as bait just for someone else to reel them in.
And knowing when to step back. Like, being a superstar is not about hogging all the limelight for yourself. It's knowing when you need to make yourself smaller so others can shine. That you are an ingredient in the soup, making everything better, and not just a slab of steak on the plate that trying to make you ignore everything else. And he really got that. And you can see that even in some of the movies that he did that I'm not the biggest fan of. You can see how he is acting not only for himself to make his own role good, but he is augmenting and trying to play off. He's not trying to one-up the other actors in the scenes that he's in, which is a problem with a lot of comedic actors of the caliber that he was. Is that they get into a scene and it becomes kind of more of a riff-off, where it's like, I'm going to one-up you, and not, I'm going to support you so you land the really good joke, and then you're going to support me, and I'm going to have the really good joke. There seems to be a much more give and take in his
adversarial.
Yes. And that, especially in the movies where the characters are adversarial, it grounds it and makes it human and watchable in a way that similar content that was made at the time is unviewable now.
That is a lot of what makes Willy Wonka so timeless for a lot of people, why they still enjoy this movie, even though it is a piece of its time. Like, it's very much about a lot of things that are at that specific point in time for that
very
country.
much about 60s culture.
Yes, and specifically in England.
Culture,
And but Gene made everyone, made sure everyone showed their humanity. And that's why we still watch it, of like, we are fascinated by the humanity of all of these characters. And Gene makes sure with Willy that everyone has to show who they really are.
And it really like, Willy Wonka is a really great movie to see this in, because the difference between it and the Johnny Depp Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Johnny Depp is eating every scene that he is in.
Yes.
He is taking up as much space in this movie as he possibly can, because he is a star. Willy Wonka, in Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder, you can see when he's talking to Violet or Veruca Salt or any of the other kids, you can see almost this paternal, avuncular side of like, this kid is going to have the best performance that they can have in this movie because they're young, they're getting. You can see how he's supporting the child actors in a way that makes, even though they're not like the world's best collection of child actors, their performances stand out because they are supported. They're not in competition with a brilliant actor who could literally act circles around them. He's coming into their level and elevating them.
And he's making sure to give them the facial expressions they need to mirror to get this right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is really easy to see with Veruca Salt. The difference between Veruca Salt and the two movies. Veruca should be a character that is unbearable to watch. Like,
Yes.
especially if you've read the book, she's unbearable to read. Like, this is just an
like she was very appropriately named. Once, you know, as an American, you find out what that word means in British.
But also, like, her being in the movie a bad egg. Like, oh, yes. This, like, sums up Veruca. But in the Willy Wonka movie, you still at least understand why she is this way.
Yes.
That her parents made her into the monster she is. And you see that she can be put in her place and that she doesn't actually resist that boundary setting. Like, you see her as a more fully three-dimensional character in the Willy Wonka version versus the Charlie the Chocolate Factory version.
Yep.
And even in the book, like, you really see her as a more fully fleshed out character in the 1960s movie, or 71. I don't remember. Yeah, let's call it. But you see this you better understand her background, and that whenever she interacts with Wonka, and he says, "This is the boundary, child," she's like, "Oh, okay." She understands, like, she has had a boundary set, but she hasn't been disciplined. That nobody's trying to hurt her, but a boundary will be maintained. And that she doesn't, lash out. She's like, oh, okay. And respects that. That she is redeemable, but her parents, if anything, are trying to make her irredeemable.
And you can see that through Gene's performance, where he is direct with her. He is harsh with her father.
Mm-hmm.
The condemnation is all on the dad. He knows what's wrong here. He knows what's wrong. He knows where the problem is. And that's, if there's the judgment that comes from the character goes straight to the father. And he's like, no, you don't understand, child. Like, he's direct with her. But there's no condemnation there because he understands she doesn't know any different. And that's a subtlety of portrayal that, especially in a kid's movie of the time that this was made, you would never see, because they would try to give you the moral lesson of this is why the kid needs to behave well. Where in this movie, this is how bad parenting can corrupt a child.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially it's a commentary on all the different forms of bad parenting at the time in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
That Roald, Roald was so ornery.
Talk about a true curmudgeon.
Yes. But on the other hand, that is, but that was also what he set out to do, is he wanted to do this commentary. And, his publisher was not there for it. Because, like, one thing, we kind of mentioned, now that Gloria and I are older and we've watched a lot more documentaries and learned a lot more about the time period.
I mean, because if you are looking for English-speaking documentaries, you will eventually end up at the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
And what
you care about the subject or not, they're just well made.
And, like, the part that makes no sense in the movie, but would make sense if you knew the original version of the story, is how is Charlie's family so poor? He has not one but two grandfathers that definitely would have served in the war and would have then been qualified for the dole at the time. But they're not getting any of that. They are literally eating cabbage water, not soup.
So little cabbage is in this. It is water, not soup. What?
And his mom is a washerwoman. Again, all of this makes sense if he was like it was originally, which was he was a person of color. His family was supposed to be from the Caribbean. And this is how England was treating the Caribbean people in the 50s and 60s.
Like, so after World War II, which we've learned from BBC documentaries, as well as called The Midwife, the BBC Farm series, and Supersizers, highly recommend. But what we learned is after World War II and during World War II, hello, Hello, Emma. We learned that the British government said, hey, come to the Caribbean, to those from the Caribbean British territories. If you come to Britain, if you come to the UK, you can work here and you will eventually get citizenship, which is where the influx of Caribbean folks came from in the late 40s and throughout the 50s. And guess who did not get citizenship as promised? For a very long time. Like literally they didn't get citizenship until the 70s or 80s, something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was like
and it was actually
80s.
Their children who got citizenship. They never did, which meant they did not qualify for the dole. They did not qualify for retirement. They did not qualify for any social services, let alone they did not necessarily qualify for living in what we would call in America HUD housing, but essentially government supported housing, where it's essentially at a discount. This was also when they were taking over estates, and that's what they call estate housing in Britain. And you'll hear this in the shows like Called the Midwife and stuff. Estate housing, the government claimed various English estates and then put huge brutalist architecture style apartment complex housing there, sometimes in the middle of nowhere, no comment, and said, why can't you get a job? Anyway, that's a whole nother matter. But the bottom line is that was promised, and then that was what was not given. So hello, Mrs. Matthews. So while the white people in Britain qualified, the Caribbean immigrants who had come to the UK for better jobs, economic opportunities, and also, hey, you'll also get citizenship, which means you will qualify for government assistance if you need it while, getting on your feet in this new country. It then did not happen, and all these people were stranded in the UK when all their family and social and economic support were back in the Caribbean. And so that is the reason originally Roald Dahl had written why Charlie and his family are like poorer than dirt. Dirt has more wealth than this. They are living in a true ramshackle corrugated metal warehouse, an abandoned warehouse. They're living in this. His mother is a washerwoman. Washerwomen normally are not even this poor. This woman is very poor. She's essentially a washerwoman to other poor people. And his grandparents are so poor, they're eating cabbage water. That's what's going on. The father has died. And this is the explanation for why the grandparents in part are truly in bed is depression, sadness, that they have been beaten down by a totally unfair, bigoted, racist society. And they've just given up.
And if you need to know just how bigoted and racist it is, watch the movie. Here's a fun bit. If you watch the first 5 minutes, tell me what the faces of the brunette children look like.
In the candy store.
In the candy store in the first 5 minutes.
Their faces.
Because they just showcase all the blonde children. Oh, there's some dirty blondes, but they're all blonde.
Versus all the brunette children never face the camera. Like there's colorism and then there's colorism.
And there's no ginger children at all.
There's no gingers. Excuse me. Britain has a shit ton of ginger children. I happen to know this. I've watched enough BBC documentaries. I have seen a literal shit ton of gingers in Britain.
And if you're
not
familiar with the time period we're talking about, just Google the Windrush generation. And they're still fighting for things that they were promised in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Like the few of those of them that are still alive, their children and their grandchildren were made promises that still have not been kept.
Mm-hmm. Like America has not cornered the market on racism, y'all. I'm just saying.
We learned it from Turf Island.
But yeah, like that's what the basis of the book was, and why, yes, it's so stark and it's a harsh commentary. But Charlie makes a lot more sense when you realize he was written up until the very last draft as a little, child of immigrant Caribbean parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he is not even really welcome inside the candy store.
Mm-hmm.
Why
Because
he
if
has
the
to buy
gingers aren't welcome, guess what? The African kids the Caribbean kids are not welcome either. Y'all, why are there no gingers? Where are all the gingers in this movie? Just where are the gingers? What is this kind of prejudice? Genesis, I read somewhere once that the point to not doing gingers was because Veruca was supposed to be redhead, but a red dress with a red wig, hello clown, not the image they wanted entirely. Could just be a theory. Yeah. Ever heard of any of Jade Elliott's views on racism? Oh no! Oh
no! I like the part where, Mrs. Matthews knows how to get by the YouTube censors.
Yes, very nice. Good job. Good job. Good for you. But again, there is colorism at every level in the world. And that we need to be aware of this. And as writers, be thinking about this. About what is the point of writing stories if we're not going to at least put in a couple jabs there for our readers to kind of open their eyes a little or make them more aware of the bigotry. So, yes, put in the commentary about, oh, well, we don't allow gingers here. Well, if they're not allowing gingers, they're sure not allowing gnome people. Or whatever. Depends on your genre of story you're writing. But, again, by the way, just because we're talking about gingers, and when I say we, I mean I'm talking about gingers mostly. Here, I want y'all all to know that it has now been proven that gingers magically pop up in every genetic group of humans in the world. And it's not that the Vikings made it all the way to Papua New Guinea. No, they did not. But gingers spontaneously occur in all genetic human groups. So you're just every, so many thousand or 100,000 babies, you're just going to get a magical ginger just pop up out of nowhere. And then the more they breed, the more that mutation becomes more common. So you get gingers everywhere. They are actually the largest true minority in the world, something like that. But just something to think about of gingers magically pop up in every genetic group, period. That's right. There's African gingers, there's Aboriginal gingers, there's First Nation gingers. And every time it's where did this baby come from? But it is a real thing that they still don't know why it happens in humans. Why do gingers pop up in every genetic group for no known reason? Let's get some gingers in here. Now, I say that, and I am a secret ginger. So, full disclosure, y'all should know I was born strawberry blonde. I was definitely one of those little redheaded kids when I was very little. And this dark sort of walnut black-brown hair did not come till I was a full-grown adult. But yes, I'm a secret ginger. So I didn't want anyone to think I'm trying to talk bad about gingers because I'm not. Also, I love red hair, and I literally have paid my hairdresser to give me, what did she call it? Firebomb red or something like that, which is how I got a sensitivity to red 40. Darn.
My favorite little known fact that about gingers is that all of the Davidic line are traditionally seen as gingers. There are words in the original Hebrew that basically were used to describe people with red hair. So when you see a movie and it's this very Aryan looking King David or Solomon or what have you, which it has its own set of problems, know that they were all gingers.
Yeah,
if you look at traditional artwork of them, every single one of them had red hair. It was to the point where by the time you get to the turn of the ages, where we go from BC to CE, it was widely believed that if you had red hair in the Judean area, you may have been descended from them, because it was just so cliche that the royalty have red hair.
And it's kind of how they recognize you're from David.
Yeah.
Right? Even Eric the Red, part of what gave him that authority was his ginger hair.
Although that would then imply that Jesus was a ginger.
Yep.
Jesus was a ginger.
There's a decent chance of that.
And that's what I want to see. I want to see Mediterranean ginger Jesus.
Yes, please. Take my money. Take my meager funds. But again, gingers and ginger prejudice have been used for literally hundreds of years by writers as a metaphor for bigger kinds of bigotry and racism. Because people go, well, they're so white though. Like, and it's like, yeah, if anything, they're whiter than white. So pale. Oh, look at the freckles. And if one day, like my mother, when I was a little girl, was like, because her father had apparently won a most freckled kid contest when he was young. And she's like, look, I'm going to tell you this now so you don't start getting fantasies. The freckles are never going to form together into a tan. And I was like, what? She's like, my father used to think that one day if he just got enough sun, all the freckles would form into a tan. They'd all get close enough. And that never happened. So I don't want you to think they'll happen. In our family, it definitely won't happen. And then forever afterwards, I could not think about that.
And that is why I could never watch Naruto with other people, because in the early anime, one of the first, marks and stuff that happened was you get bitten and they have this little speckled area, a little bit like a Trill from Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But the evolution of it, when you unlock the full power of this, they all swirl together, combine, and your skin just grows a few shades darker.
Yeah.
And you lose all the pattern. I'm just like, oh my God, it is the freckle fantasy.
It's the freckle fantasy. Yeah. Versus Tom.
Someone turned it into anime.
Even when Tom was a little baby, he tanned beautifully. He was born with the hair color he has now. He's always had this hair color. And he tanned like a nut. He had this beautiful, like light mahogany color when he tanned in the summertime. And Mom's like, you see, brother, that's never going to be you. So please do not fantasize about this. There's no amount of sun. And that's why we keep trying to cover you in titanium dioxide. Now come over here and let mommy paint you. I mean, y'all. Anyway.
Was it painting or basting at that point?
She was rubbing it on. Just covered in white, and then put that big hat on me, that huge sombrero that Dad bought at a Mexican restaurant off their wall. And then put Dad's blue button-down shirt on me over my swimsuit, said, now go out on the beach. Like,
now learn to take criticism from the other children.
Literally. And I mean, that's something you can definitely tell Gene Wilder has dealt with, is a lot of criticism, because he's not worried about it.
Because, like, y'all, literal beachgoers would get up and run from me as I would toddle across the Mississippi Gulf Coast beach.
I mean, E.T. had just recently come out. There was a certain similarity.
I just remember the couple, like, taking a double take and then getting up and grabbing their towel and running. And going, what's going on? Mom's like, come over here. But again, like, that is the problem when you have a ginger baby, is they're going to crisp. They're going to burn like a hot kebab. I give you all of this for flavor text. All of my darlings, take all of these for flavor text. Feel free. Remember, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Just steal these stories. Make them your own. Okay? The life of a ginger. Whatever. It's a metaphor for bigger bigotry. That is what writers use gingers as, because white people have such a hard time relating. They're like, but I've always been on top. It's like, okay, well, gingers.
I mean, as I was having a moment of anger reading some stuff on Instagram, like, Instagram likes to bomb you with.
Mm-hmm.
I just had the didactic speech running through my head of, oh, it's so nice for these people at this school that their existence is not political. My existence is political. If you are not in the complete majority, your existence is always political.
Yes.
You can't exist without being political by your existence if you are not the absolute majority. And whenever you hear someone say, oh, don't make it political, they are literally just saying, oh, I have always been in the majority of everything.
Mm-hmm.
No worries.
And it really shows privilege, because I was the only out kid in my high school. And I did not come out at high school. I came out at a party amongst friends in what I thought was confidence. And then got to
teenage
school,
confidence.
and everybody knew, and everybody treated me differently. Like I was making a public statement or declaration by just existing. I did not change the way I dressed. I did not change the way I acted. I just went to school like normal, and all of a sudden was more of a pariah than I had been before.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden, oh, there's this thing that we can use against you. And it was weaponized so much by so many people, because the 90s was not the magical fairyland that a lot of people want to make it into. Sorry, the nostalgia boom right now is getting to me. Like,
yeah, it's so strange trying to make the 90s like a fairy tale, a dark fairy tale maybe.
Well, I mean, but Glory, you watched that little documentary I posted for you on YouTube of how that is exactly what Back to the Future is.
Yes, I did. I did watch the Back to the Future documentary.
But like the Chaos Demon was saying in the other room, like, yeah, it was that if you were the people from Friends.
Yeah.
Upper middle class.
Upper middle class and white, which is why nobody at the time questioned how could they afford those apartments in New York. Like none of them worked. Most of them were unemployed the entire time, but they were white and pretty. So everybody just went, oh, privilege, they deserve the apartments. Nobody questioned how they could live there.
Or nepotism. That's how they got the apartments, you know. Yeah. Oh, your Aunt Mary's dying. Oh, we'll see about getting you the apartment, you know, something. I never actually watched the show when it was originally airing because I did not have cable. And we did not, whatever channel it was on, obviously was not one I could get in. Also, quite honestly, in the 90s, I was working a ton. Even when I was in middle school, I think I was working 20 hours a week babysitting. And then when I was in high school, when I came back from boarding school, I was working 60 to 80 hours a week in childcare. And then taking care of our family and cooking all the meals for them. So, yeah, I did not have time to watch primetime television at all. But I heard about Friends. And
you could not exist in the 90s without hearing about Friends.
Yeah, I'll just put it this way. Everybody telling you about Friends did not sound like a show I wanted to watch.
Let's say I always love the threat of someone or a few people getting enough money together to buy the rights for Friends and then streaming it without the laugh track.
That would be, yes. Because, like, again, it's more like a tragedy or Goodfellas kind of. Yeah. I don't know. I also didn't really get to watch much of Seinfeld. These were not child-safe shows, so I didn't get to watch them when I was working. I got to watch a lot of PBS in those days. A lot. But y'all, let me tell you how adorable I looked in plaid skirts with black pantyhose or tights on. Oh, great.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Sorry, just James Lipton. Like I know that was on Bravo, wasn't it? Inside the Actors Studio, but still, anytime I think about PBS, my mind immediately goes to James Lipton and why they never did a crossover with Masterpiece Theater.
Yeah, it was on Bravo, yeah.
I think I hear James Lipton and I see and hear Kedekai.
Yes.
And of these two were really a set.
Yeah, he married his Dom. Good for him. Good for him. Good for her too if she had a good time. But anyhow,
oddly enough, that feels like a interesting segue into Gene and his wonderful wife, because they fit together so well.
Which one? He was married. He was a true romantic.
Yes. Yeah. He was married 4 times.
Do you think there's a reason I did not date a name?
You know, I can't tell if you were just having a moment and you forgot there was more than one.
Because
romanticism.
Because as somebody who like loves the idea of love, Gene Wilder in so many ways feels like the embodiment of I don't know the right word here. Positive heterosexual romance.
Sure.
I'm trying to find a word, the opposite of toxic, because I don't want to say healthy because that feels weird.
Yeah.
It's still not quite
Speaking,
healthy.
speaking of,
Yeah, it's still not quite right.
I know that Funny About Love is like all the way on the other end of
Yeah, I see
Gene
that
Wilder's
too.
career, but here is my hot take. Buckle up. If Daphne and Meg had been able to meet, I really feel like they would have gotten married together and totally cut out Gene Wilder's character out of an otherwise very romantic movie that, in my opinion, ended in tragedy. He got back with Meg. Ugh, poor Meg.
And I just have a Mariel Hemingway movie going through my mind right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but honestly, Mary Stuart Masterson and Christy Latty together, that is the happy ending it should have had.
What was it you described Mary Stuart Masterson's character as? A crying lesbian?
A crying lesbian. Why is this crying lesbian with a heterosexual man?
Oh,
Yes, that is my take on Mary Stuart Masterson's character Daphne. Of why is there a crying lesbian with a het man?
Like, we both had the same similar thoughts about this character of just, oh, she is trying to play her straight and she is just not.
this
And
is the
I am
reboot I
not
need.
trying to say that sporty women are all queer or something.
No, it's
That is not.
specifically Mary Stuart
Oh, you can be
Masterson's.
plenty of heterosexual women are very sporty and love sports, and that is absolutely valid. But this character did not read as heterosexual, y'all. She very much read as a lesbian, but why is she with a man? Why? Are you proving something, sweetheart?
Yes,
Because
that she
no
could have a
woman-
baby and have it all. She was just going
Yeah.
to.
Well, I guess that's the real reason she broke up with him and moved to LA, so that I like to believe she finally found her lesbian commune.
Among her Delta Gamma
Melt her
sisters,
Delta Gamma goddesses, yes. That's what I like to believe.
which I also loved the quick weird fact of Meg, the second wife,
Yeah,
the cook,
Christy Latty.
was actually in real life a Delta Gamma.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
I need this reboot. I am not usually a big fan of the reboot, but I need this reboot.
That is honestly how I would rewrite the script.
But I mean, on the other hand,
He's
also
more like
I do
A
enjoy.
facilitator. He is the Cupid.
Yes,
Essentially, they have to go through hell before they could then and meet each other. And finally, now this is actually based on a real life experience that I know about. So I've told y'all before about Tales from the Back Room.
okay.
So there was this guy, and he was dating this one woman. Actually, I think they were married. And
They were married.
trying to spice it up. They went to our back room at the video store, got all sorts of adult products. Okay, cool. And then they come back and like, hey, we want to like get another person involved. We want to, so like, what are good, threesome products and stuff. And I'm like, well, you definitely need to get a couple movies, get you in the mood, right? And probably like maybe like get some of these more storylines with threesomes so that you could show it to somebody and see if they're interested. Like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this in real life? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, in my defense, this was the late 90s, early 2000s when this happened. Anyway, so they get some extra products, and of course, you need lots of lubricant, in my opinion, if you're going to have weird fun time. You need to get lots of lube, let alone flavored lube, right? And all this. So they then go to the bar. They go to the country western. Why are they going to the country? I told them to go to the gay club. They did not go to the gay club. They went to the country western bar and hit up various line dancing women until they found one who's like, sure, why not? Right? Okay. And they apparently did it. They had it. Things went well. They became a throuple. Cool. Then they brought her there to go get her own products and they bought it for her. Okay, all this cool. What a happy little throuple. Yeah. 6 months later, the two women coming together and they're like, we'd like to open up our own account. And I'm like, oh, okay. So sorry for your loss. And they're like, oh, he's alive. But we fell in love and he did not want us to be in love together. So, no. Also, I'm taking the kids. Like, okay, not my business. Anyway, then a couple of 2 months later, he comes in with another woman, a girlfriend, again, that he met at the country western bar. All right. And then he's going to buy her products. Cool, cool. And he's like, she's very straight. She's not a little gay. And I'm like, I did not ask, but cool, cool. And then a couple months later, she comes in with him and she's like, hey, I heard there's some like movies about three ways. I'm curious. And I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, as long as she understands no touching, that the women cannot touch. And that is specifically what they wanted me to find, was movies for them where the women do not touch in a three-way. We tried our best to find them some stuff. Fine. And then, yes, they found another person to add to their bedroom activities. And everything went well until apparently one night the women touched. And then they fell in love. And then he was like, no, this is not okay. And he broke up with both of them. So they came in to open up their own account. And one of them was pregnant with his baby. But he just won't understand our love. Like, do you know about the other ex-wives? And they're like, I heard about. I was like, you should definitely go search them out. And they did. They took my advice and started a support group, the four of these women.
And long story short,
I'm not done. And then he comes in again with another woman, and not one he met at the country western bar. He met her at a gas station, and the same thing happened again, y'all, even though he had a very explicit no touching rule. And I said to him, honey, when are you going to learn not to do threesomes? Like, you just can't. And he's like, okay, so what apparently actually happened was she met her at the same gas station, and they had been sort of dating as friends on the side, and then they kissed, and then they talked me into a threesome. And I'm like, oh, baby, you're like a lucky charm for women to find love, just not with you.
This is the reboot and series of that Mariel Hemingway movie that I think we need.
He ended up having, what was it, 6 children?
Yes.
Between like 8 of these women who all ended up pairing up and throupling up with each other. And so they regularly had family reunions so all of his children could get together, and they invited him, but sometimes he didn't come. Because
by the way, he was a truck driver who went all across the South, and he tried to find women far away from where he lived. It still kept happening. Last we heard, there was at least 4 couples.
No, it was more than that. It was like double-digit number of women, and they had these reunions together with them and their children, all of his children. And he just kept helping them find love with each other. And he just did not understand. I'm like, look, sir, the thing you need to remember is you obviously have excellent taste in women. It's just they really go for the same taste you have in women.
Okay, so here's the pitch. The series is called The Matchmaker.
Ooh.
And it's not going to make sense until book 2.
Okay. Let's write it.
Book 2 is when that's going to be, oh, that's why it's called that.
Yes. So that is just one of many tales from the back room, y'all.
Inspired by true life events.
Yes. And on that note, all right, let us do a little spritty sprint. We'll do a little bio sprint. I'm going to turn the AC on because it is getting humid in here. And we will see y'all back here in approximately 10 minutes. What a wonderful time for you to make sure you have something to drink, because we are a hydrate or dihydrate crowd. And also, have you thought about a snack? Writers need snacks. Snacks keep us thinking and keep our blood sugar up, because the brain uses a lot of glucose. So we'll see y'all in a few minutes. I hope you're able to maybe get a snack, check in with your bladder, a little walk around, whatever you did. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Maybe. Welcome back. Glory will be joining us in just a moment. So, how was everyone's break? Did we get to eat and drink? I definitely had more to drink. And okay, I had some snacks.
Had more to got some more water and scarfed down a plate of hamburger mac like the Cookie Monster with cookies.
I mean, is there any other way though to eat hamburger mac?
Not really, no.
So like me.
It's the reason I always turn my microphone off when we eat, because nobody needs to hear all of the nom 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 sounds, because I am a Muppet.
I wasn't that loud, was I?
I didn't think so, but then again, you had to make sounds over my nom 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 sounds. So. I could have just drowned you out. I don't know.
True.
I put jam on some oil cake.
That is delicious.
I warmed it up in the toaster oven. After I dealt with the toaster oven trying to fall into the sink.
Yeah, we just got a new toaster oven after our last one decided to do an unsanctioned welding experiment with itself.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was not anybody's friend.
It just became an art piece.
It kind of, yeah. But the new one, it has, I think Brian is trying to replace all of our home equipment with Japanese stuff that sings to him while he's making things. Because,
I mean, why not?
They also put a quarter jet engine in the back of it. It's true turbo. True convection.
When you turn on air fryer, like, you need to put earplugs in. Like, it just goes for it.
Well,
it does a really good job, but it goes for it.
It's part of how air fry technology works. It reduces the pressure, and so that the heat can, but you need enough air movement to change the pressure inside the air fryer. This, in a lot of ovens, are like, we're air fryers, and it's like, no, you're just a convection oven that has a booster. A little bit more air. You don't actually true air fry. This one, by the sounds it makes, I'm pretty sure it true air fries. Because, yeah, it sounds like a jet engine taking off.
I'm pretty sure it makes its own mini hurricane on the inside.
Yeah.
Oh, I know ours does. Because, fun fact, soon after we got our air fryer, I found a box of Rice Chex cereal that had fallen in the back that had never been opened from like 5 years prior. And I'm like, the real problem is it's just stale. Because I checked it and no bugs had gotten in or anything in the bag because it had never been opened. So I just put whole handfuls of it in the air fryer.
Oh, no.
Watch them swirl.
Because our air fryer is a kind of like a toaster oven style.
Yeah.
And it's got a window on the side.
Yes.
So you can watch it as the wind just picks it up.
I did make a video of this one time.
I'm afraid to watch this thing in action. Like, it scares me slightly.
That's how you know it's truly working.
And that is how you know that you married a chef. It scares me when it's cooking. That's how you know it's working. It's not, no.
Yes.
Will the food cook or will I cook? Either way, we'll know when it's done by the smell.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cook.
Oh, my.
So, I'm not really sure where to really go next to G. Wilder, but my next thought of one is not quite a comedy, though they say it's a comedy. I wonder if they just say that because Gene Wilder's in it. Of his Western with Harrison Ford.
Oh.
Yes.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
It is a fascinating movie. Like, it is not a comedy. Like any good drama, though, there are definitely comedic moments in it. And it's, for Harrison Ford's part, it's just if you dropped Han Solo actually in the Old West. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really is just the Han Solo character actually in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess...
And the part that saddens me a bit about modern times is that when I was looking through at like reviews and comments and stuff about this movie, the ones made about it in the last 5 years. By the way, it's called. Oh, great! Now I've forgotten.
You're talking about the Frisco Kid.
Yeah, the Frisco Kid. Is people now see it simply as a Jewish and a gay movie. And it's not that much of either. Oh, it's definitely Jewish. Like, I mean, Gene Wilder plays a Jewish rabbi from the old country in Poland.
Graduated the bottom of his class.
The bottom. Go into San Francisco. But they instantly go with gay because by the halfway point of this movie, Harrison Ford and Gene Wilder definitely care and love each other. There is no question. But it's romantic love. They care and worry about each other's well-being. There's no sexuality really brought up in this.
So it's like Brokeback Mountain.
No, they definitely wanted to do each other. There's no question in that movie.
Shade on that movie.
Now look, I will say in both Frisco Kid and Brokeback Mountain, they did cuddle. There was a lot of tight gripping. Granted, in Frisco Kid, it was because they were in the middle of a snowstorm. I don't know how the horses survived.
Excuses. So I feel like I have to always start with any discussion of a Harrison Ford film with my deeply held religious belief that nothing was ever made better by adding Harrison Ford to a thing.
Well, you and the director agreed.
Because Glory found out the actual history of this, and God, I wish we could have gotten that movie.
All right.
Mostly because it would have helped the people this movie was meant for.
All right. So, okay, backstory. And yes, we're going back to the video store on this one. So, picture it. I used to own a video rental store with a back room in the late 90s and early 2000s in South Mississippi. The video store was in a single wide trailer in front of a cornfield next to an entire herd of goats. And they had a barn, and the barn played Animal Planet 24/7 because the goats like to watch Animal Planet. It didn't actually play 24/7 because Bobby Joe used to put him to sleep at night at like 9:30, and then you turn off the TV, so they'd actually get rest. He literally would read him a bedtime story, y'all. I caught him doing it a couple times. So anyway, it's on the side of a major interstate highway. So that's the video store. We're really in the country. I mean, we are in, like, even for rural Mississippi, we are in the country by their standards. There were customers we had who used to literally brag that they had never left the county. What?
Wow.
What? Number one, why would you even brag about that? And number two, you're literally 50 minutes drive from the Gulf Coast. The beach is free in Mississippi. All the beaches are public property and are absolutely free to access. Now it's not exactly quite like that because part of the beaches are now owned by the casino, and they got rid of the beach essentially, and they put the casino there. But like all the beach is free and open to the public. You don't need to pay anything. You don't need to show your ID. Nothing. Why would you brag that you've never been outside the county when the beach is like right there? And it is a gorgeous beach that has shipped in Australian sand every year. So it's white sandy beaches, fresh from Australia, every freaking year. And so they clean the beach. They clean the sand, y'all. So there's nothing like terrible in the sand. You're not going to hurt your feet. Everybody walks barefoot there. It's really a nice beach. I got to say, it's a nice beach.
Do you even keep the cats?
I hate beaches, but it's a nice beach. Even I'm saying that. What'd you say, Chaos?
I said, what about the Great Cat Scandal of '83?
The Great
Is
Cat
that-
Scandal?
He's worried that the cats are getting into the sand. It's a whole thing. Just
Yeah.
let him have it and
I'm
move
making
on.
a cat poop joke.
So,
Sorry.
okay. So technically, that would normally be a problem. Okay, I have a terrible thing to tell you. So what happens is I-90 is on, so there's the Gulf of Mexico on one side of the beach, and there's I-90 on the other, and the cats don't make it. Okay. I'm sorry. I hate to ruin anybody's good time. The cats do not make it. Long Beach. They have to go all the way to the edge of the border of Mississippi to get to the beach. And yes, yeah, you can tell there. But like in Gulfport and Biloxi, it's gorgeous. So anyway, so my point just being, that is the video store. We're out in the middle of the country. This is literally a few years before streaming was available. This is technically before DVDs became widely available. Like movies, you could like order movies new on DVD. This was right before that, actually. So we had, of course, you have to have a back catalog in a video rental store. You can't just have new movies. You have to have a back catalog, and it actually brings people in. And we had a deal called 5 movies, $5, 5 days. It was a 5-5-5. And you could rent any of our back catalog for 5 movies, $5, 5 days. Normal rental was 2 days. So even if you were still, the regular back catalog rental was $1 for 2 days, or if you got 5, you got for 5 days, all of them. And so we had all the greatest hits. We had all that stuff. We had a thriving Western section because I got a great deal at Walmart. Like I literally bought VHS for $1 to $3 each of all the Westerns that my father loved. And he loved Westerns. So we had a really great Western section. But of course, being me, I also went and ordered online The Frisco Kid. Again, a movie that my parents loved. And because I used to think it was hilarious to make all of these racist, bigoted rednecks watch Jewish films. I thought it was funny. And eventually they go through the entire back catalog of Western movies, and eventually they'd have to get to Frisco Kid and they'd rent it. And I swear to you, every time we only had like a dozen men who pretty much were kept that the Western section rotating. It was just 12 of them, really, 12 to 14, depending on the year. They'd come in every single week, rent 5, watch that all week, bring them back, rent another 5. That's literally what this like small coterie of men, they did not even know each other. Every one of them, after they'd finally get down to the Frisco Kid, would come in and bring in Frisco Kid and said, "This has changed my worldview," and put it down. And like, I think I'm going to watch some movies outside the Westerns now. And they'd honestly watch some movies that were essentially about civil rights and stuff. It was the wildest thing. And I'm like, what is up with this movie? But the thing is I was in my very late teens, early 20s when I owned the video store. And I did not understand what it is to be masculine in America at the time. I was too busy working on what it means to be feminine in America at the time. And I was newly married, and I was I was trying to get various degrees at that point. I kept having to change my major because my majors kept disappearing at my university. No comment. And then I hit sexism, and that's how I got out of management information systems. Oh boy, men hating women is serious business, y'all.
Really is.
I was not prepared to literally be frozen out of a degree program just because I was a woman. Because I was a very competent woman. I had already been working on computers, being paid. I was a professional repairing computers and installing hardware and software into computers for years at that point. I had been writing HTML programming since I was 13. And to get frozen out like that was just mind-blowing to me. But anyway, that was what I was doing with. So I wasn't really thinking about what it means to be masculine. This week, I rewatched The Frisco Kid for the first time in like 20 years. And I get it now. That it's really about... Hear me out. Here's my pitch. Hear me out. A Far East European man, immigrant, and a American Western man, and them having multiple conversations about what it means to be masculine, to be a man. And let's be honest, no historical drama is actually historical. It's all contemporary. And they're talking about what it means to be a man in the 70s. So what this film actually was, is it was a project that was supposed to be John Wayne's final comedy. It was supposed to finish out. He wanted a trilogy of comedies. It was supposed to be in the vein of True Grit and Rooster Cogburn. And this was going to be his final film. And it was originally going to be called No Knife. This was the project that the studio was making for him at his request. And at the very last minute, he bowed out. And the reason why we now know is because he died right after that. He died literally, I think, the day before the film premiere. So people have conjectured he didn't do it because of the cursing or any, and that is, number one, you don't have to have cursing in films. Number two, Gene Wilder rewrote the screenplay 2 or 3 times. It was only rewritten. The screenplay only had 4 drafts. So that wasn't it. It was just, I think John Wayne was too ill. He knew he wasn't physically up for such the physical requirements of this film. There's a lot of horse riding. There's a bunch of stunt stuff. And I think he just literally wasn't up for it. This is probably one of the very few films that I almost wish John Wayne had been in. Even though I do not like him. Yes, he is absolutely homophobe and racist and all the other problems that America has. But it was really a film about masculinity and trying to come to peace about it. Go on and tell me how you totally disagree. It's totally fine. I shall drink my coffee.
I'll say it.
I am unmuted. They can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me on the most fabulous.
Go for it, Chaos.
I said he had the most fabulous gay walk ever.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Oh my God, could that guy swing?
His parents should have named him Nancy.
Well, they named him Mary, and it was close.
Yeah.
You take that back.
Yes.
Sorry, I had a King of the Hill moment there.
Dang it, Bobby.
No, I mean when you say it that way, it casts the movie in a very different light, and I'm kind of curious about rewatching it with that in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Can I quickly ruin it for you at the same moment?
I mean, Harrison Ford already did, but you can try to add on to that.
They unofficially parodied or remade it without telling anyone. It's called Shanghai Nights.
Shanghai Noon.
Shanghai Noon. That's right.
Wasn't Shanghai Noon the first one?
Yes. Yeah, it's called Shanghai Noon.
Now that I can see.
It is a man from the East and a cowboy who's a schmuck.
Mm-hmm.
Developing a friendship and a deep affection for each other in this long journey they share together by, force.
I would say this about Frisco Kid. If you are ever interested in either understanding Westerns, both the stories and the films, really the whole genre, and especially if you're ever interested in writing in this genre, I highly recommend you watch The Frisco Kid at least once, if not multiple times. This movie truly is the culmination of 100 years of Western stories, and it finally gives it the right ending. It finally takes all of the common genre tropes inside Westerns, revisits them, and gives them the modern conversation points that it really needed this whole time about, hey, all these other people we encounter in the West, they're people too.
Like, it would have been the perfect counterpoint for John Wayne to make up for the Searchers.
Yes. And he really wanted to be it. Gene Wilder rewrote it for John Wayne to his specifications. And then John Wayne couldn't physically do it. But honestly, I do think this was actually supposed to be, John Wayne wanted to kind of put that cherry on the top. Okay, here's what I've learned after doing an entire lifetime of Western films and truly living that propaganda of this is where I've come to. This is the conclusion. And it's a satisfying conclusion, y'all. Like I kept going, okay, where's this going? Like even at the end, like when they get to the saloon or the restaurant, whatever you want to call that thing. And I'm like, and I almost didn't want to finish it. But Tom had told me, no, there's this really great conversation that Harrison Ford and Gene Wilder have about what happened on the beach. And I think it's wonderful. And just because Tom had told me that, I was like, okay, I'm going to stay for this. And I watched, it, like, oh my, they actually get to the point about violence and what it means to be a man. And when you start losing your manliness and all of that. And then the bad guy shows back up and they've got to essentially have another version of this conversation because it's now the stakes are even higher because his whole community is now watching and he's supposed to be the leader. And Harrison Ford is nowhere to be found because what's going to happen? It actually does put the cherry on top about all of this and the problem with modern macho American manhood concepts and the shortcomings and what we can do to bridge over to something less toxic and more functional.
And honestly, it gets to the same, it shows correctly why I have such a problem with how Peter Jackson ended the Lord of the Rings series.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always felt that the whole point of this movie is not to throw the ring into the mountain as much as that's the story, that's the plot. But the actual lesson you learn in Lord of the Rings is that these hobbits had to go out and find themselves and these skills that they did not have to protect their own people at the very end because no one else is coming for them. They are too inconsequential for anyone else to care about. Yeah,
no one is coming to save us, so we have to go out in the world, learn the skills to come back and save our own people.
And they left that out. Like, that is what sort of redeems all the trauma to Merry and Pippin.
Mm-hmm.
And to a lesser degree, what happens with, Sam and Frodo.
Yeah, I agree.
Is if they hadn't done all of this, their people would be gone.
Their people would have been wiped out. Or enslaved and then wiped out, which is even worse.
But in Frisco Kid, we get to see all of this play out and actually show the answer and the moral.
An isolated society is problematic in that it's idealized inside of that isolation, but you're not learning the skills you need to survive when the outside world intrudes, as it inevitably will. That is why all of the trouble, all of the sacrifice, all of the, heartbreak and physical harm was worth it to the hobbits, because they were able to save their people because they took all the skills. And the same thing happened to Avram. He had to travel the hard way, all the way across from Philadelphia to San Francisco, so he could learn the skills to protect his community and to guide them and to become a top of the class rabbi from the bottom of the class rabbi that he started as. Hi, Kat.
I mean, very much that the whole, Zen is not on the mountain.
It's in the streets.
And that is what it took for Avram to grow up and become truly a full-fledged leader of people, was he had to go through the streets.
Mm-hmm.
He had lived in the mountains, and it had not helped him grow.
this isolated community in Poland, and he didn't know anything of the world. He didn't know how to operate in the world. He didn't understand that when he was being labeled as a mark and then he was taken advantage of and then brutally assaulted and robbed. Even while he is being brutalized, he doesn't understand what's happening because he's been so protected and isolated his whole life up to that point.
And that is why, again, we say Gene Wilder movies are art.
Yes.
They are not popcorn. We didn't really come across a single Gene Wilder movie that was popcorn.
We thought we were getting what it was.
This is what I really enjoy about conversations about this, because I had written off The Frisco Kid, because it is not my favorite Gene Wilder movie, and
it's not a comedy. Even though
it was not my favorite up until this week. Yeah. I had watched it 2 or 3 times as a child and teenager, and I did not like it each time. But now I really have gained an appreciation now that I am middle-aged about this is, number one, historically accurate in how people are operating, how to interact. I will, fair warning here, there is some red face. I wish there wasn't. A bunch of the people in the tribe actually are of indigenous descent, but pretty much if they have a talking role, they are not. They're Italian. We looked it up. So that's my cringe. I think people should be warned. But nevertheless, the portrayal I thought was very fair, was compassionate, and
they even give them the lines to speak back of the...
Yeah, it does not punch down.
You speak to us like we're children, and you expect us to speak like children. What is wrong with you?
Like, again, it's got that cringe. Be warned. I mean, it was filmed in the 70s. Nevertheless, I still would recommend that. I honestly would recommend everybody give this movie a rewatch or a watch if you've never seen it. It is a kind of best kept secret kind of movie. It is a diamond in the rough. Now, apparently, according to Harrison Ford, every time the director looked at him, Aldrich looked at him with disappointment and sorrow. And Harrison Ford interpreted that as that every time Aldrich looked at Harrison Ford, he saw where John Wayne should be. And I do think this would have been a better film if John Wayne, a much older actor, I think, what was it? He's 33 years older than Harrison Ford?
Yeah.
Would have brought a very different energy to it. And instead, Harrison Ford gives a very kind of contemporary masculine portrayal versus, I grew up watching Rooster Cogburn and True Grit. And I am here to say, oh no, I see where John Wayne should have been.
Yeah, instead of it being about the greatest generation and the silent generation's masculinity arguments, it instead becomes the silent generation and the baby boomers conversation about masculinity.
Because, I mean, the big issue that I have, not only with this movie, but just to fill out a little bit my animosity with Harrison Ford, I really feel like the characters that he always plays are the embodiment of patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him personally. I have seen very few interviews with him because I just don't have the time or energy to put in that. I don't know how much of that is just the roles he's cast in and how much of that's him. I don't know. But there is so much of just this, I am man, therefore I have the right to, in all of the characters that he plays, in, from Han Solo all the way through. I mean, the apotheosis of this archetype that he plays is really, I just listening to the character he plays in Working Girl, where he is the living embodiment of patriarchy, who has to be taken down a peg by the women in the movie who actually get to take him down a peg. And I see so much of that in his portrayals in every movie that he's in that I'm just bored with it. Like, the only time that I've ever seen him break out of that is, oddly enough, in one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but I love because it's so bad. And that was Rise of Skywalker, and I think it's because he was thinking of Carrie Fisher when he was on set, because he knew that she was supposed to be doing stuff and wasn't there, and there was a tenderness in that role, the way he did that I have not seen in any other movie that he's ever done. Like, he doesn't do tender.
Well, I would like to bring your attention to the Frisco Kid. There is this tender moment when Avram is like, "Where are you going?" And Lilith says, "I'm going over here. There's, a gold rush.
There's gold, yeah.
But where will you be? You were my best friend. How you won't be at my wedding?" And he's like, "I'm your best friend? Yes, you're my only friend. I've never been anybody's best friend before." Like, there is this, like, they're somewhat yelling at each other because, again, masculinity. But it is actually shockingly tender. I was surprised.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I think I need to rewatch this movie after having had this conversation, because I feel like I have such a wall up for him, because I just, like, the best things in all the Indiana Jones movies are not Harrison Ford. Like, there's many things that I love that Harrison Ford has been in, but he is not the reason for any of that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Harrison Ford in every Indiana Jones movie. That's him. Like he is the himbo of the film. Why is this supposed to be his film?
And so I've kind of ignored him. Like, he just becomes like background noise for me. And I think you pointed out a thing that I've missed, and I feel like I need to go back and watch.
And then the saloon scene toward the very end, where Avram is like, I'm not a rabbi anymore. I've killed a man. And Harrison Ford is fierce and upset of like, "No, you are a good man. You have to understand, he was going to kill both of us. That is what a good man does. You can't let the bad people win." And Avram's like, "Well," and Harrison Ford is fierce in his protection and also his faith in Avram. And it's like, oh, it literally brings me to tears, because like, it's so raw there in that scene. Like, Harrison Ford, actually, in my personal opinion, some of the best work I've ever seen of him. I've never seen him give such a raw emotional performance. It was so good. And so, like, I really believe these were just two people having a very desperate conversation at the end of a very emotionally exhausting several months. And if anything, like, what then happened at the very end made so much more sense, that Lilith is going to come back for Avram and not leave him to deal with the lone remaining bad guy alone, because they are best friends and they absolutely think loving of each other. And so they are ride or die now, essentially.
Even though throughout we see how they frustrate each other a lot.
My God. They get so mad during one of many bank robberies.
This is not one of those, cheesy, idealized, "Oh, are we best friends now? Yes, I think we are." No. Throughout, they drive each other nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But they recognize the quality of each other, and that is what they want to keep around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there is a scene where Avram, because it is still Saturday day, it is still the day of rest. He cannot ride a horse, and they are on the run from men who want to kill them. And Harrison Ford still walks and leads the horses with him. As much as like, "Is it time yet? Can we get on the horses?" Not yet. Like, oh, Avram definitely drives him nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we see this, they care about each other deeply. And that is where in modern times now they've gotten this confused with sexuality of, no, this is not sexuality. It's not that, "Oh, now I want to marry you. And I want to," it's no, they want to stay friends. They want to keep them in each other's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows the basic nature of toxic masculinity in our culture, where the only even remotely acceptable way for men to have intimacy with or for each other is in a romantic relationship, because we are still in this mindset that men cannot be intimate friends without the naughties.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can also tell that this is before the pick your favorite no term on YouTube took over Hollywood, because there are gay characters as well as there people of everyone in the Old West was there. There are Chinese people playing Chinese people there.
Well, I think it was actually Japanese, but it's okay.
But are not playing stereotypes. They
right.
are just
like
citizens.
Now there's Paco, who, again, but he's not playing a stereotype. Like, as I said, this is truly, to me, the Frisco Kid, I now consider it the culmination of 100 years of Wild West stories. And frankly, they finally got it right. Like, where people are not stereotypes, they are three-dimensional characters. They have real thoughts and feelings and emotional attachments. And it's a motley crew of people you're going to meet in America. Everybody's here. Everybody's here in America. It's great. And you're going to come across them throughout your travels. And yes, everybody's valid.
There are gay characters in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why at first I thought that's maybe what they were talking about. And then as I watched, I was like, oh, no, they're saying the main characters. Like, no, they're not.
Yeah, I would not say they're gay. I would not say the main characters are gay.
And they love each other. Yes, absolutely. But they do not want to share a bed unless it is for warmth or security.
Also, neither of them is asking. What I thought was really interesting about this relationship was neither of them was really asking each other to change. Yeah. Like, there's part where it's like, but there's a posse, we have to ride. And it's like, no, it's Friday night. We walk. That's it. But, like, he wasn't asking him to stop being Jewish. He just was like, but isn't this like an exception? Nope. Of that. And then when the Torah was about to be burned, and Gene Wilder's character Avram goes to grab it out of the fire, and then afterwards in the saloon where they're talking about this, and Avram's like, I'm not a good rabbi. I tried to save the Torah instead of you. And like, they're essentially having this very important discussion. And Harrison Ford is like, not like, oh, you made a mistake. He's like, no, of course you went and grabbed it. I understood. Like, but paper is not more important than people, which, by the way, in Judaism is a very big deal. Human life is always trumps everything else.
Yeah.
Always. So yes, the rabbi made a bad choice. In the heat of the moment, he chose wrong. And he was having essentially a crisis. But again, being best friends, Harrison Ford's character is definitely going to help him. What is it? When you lose your way, your friends sing you the song of yourself to remind you who you are.
Yep.
And that is exactly what Harrison Ford's character does, is remind him of exactly who Avram is back to Avram. Because Avram's about to need it. So I thought it was great. Like, again, is Wild West stories necessarily for me? No, because I'm not really needing to cross-examine masculinity personally. And that is really what the genre is used for. However, as an example of the genre, I think this is a fantastic example. And I highly recommend everybody visit it and see what you think. Also, to recommend it to anyone you know who does like Westerns. Like, I'm honestly going to recommend this to my stepfather, who absolutely loves Westerns. And see if he is interested in watching it, because I think he'd enjoy it, or at least find it thought-provoking. And as several men at the video store came in and said, this has changed how I think about myself and the world. Literally returned to the movie each time with, this has changed how, have you watched this? This has changed how I think about myself and the world. And I just did not understand at the time. I just enjoyed that every time I would get one of them to rent it, they'd come back in like, this has changed everything for me. And I just thought that was really funny.
Doug heard a car and ran in such a way that all the cats panicked.
Ah.
Everything's fine.
Since we don't have that much time left, I figured a few movies that are just hot takes, quick thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Why is
we don't
Haunted
have a lot
Honeymoon
to
a
pick up.
thing? Sorry.
I'll actually, I want to talk a little bit about Haunted Honeymoon. Like that, I actually have some thoughts about it. I find Dom DeLuise surprisingly comforting as Aunt
Kate.
But no, like, so hot takes on The Lady in Red.
Oh.
This is a
A movie about schmucks. I know.
about schmucks. How and also how this was the Silent Generation's movie of you've reached your 30s and you now realize everything you were told about having relationships and marriage and the opposite sex were lies. Everything you were told was a lie, and you have to figure it all out all over again. Because we see how both all the men and the women are schmucks. It's not just, oh, these men are, men behaving badly or something. No, they're just human, and they're all of a sudden come to the understanding of, wait, women are not what I was told and how I thought and how our marriage was set up. It's not.
Are women people?
They're people with guns, y'all.
And I mean, that's a special scene. You don't see a lot of movies where a wife is holding a little snub nose directly at the crotch of her husband for several minutes while he's on the phone. Just resting it there. Ready to take off a nut. And she's explaining how, she is a jealous woman. She does her best, but do not put her in this situation. It will not end well. But that is what The Lady in Red really is about. It's about the lie, the silent generation, and to a lesser degree, the older baby boomers starting to understand about everything we were told as men and women about the other gender is not true. And this is the difficult growing pains of starting over. That's all.
Sort of rebuilding your worldview.
Yeah.
Also, we do think it is one of the best performances of Kelly LeBrock out there.
Yes.
Oh, what was your headcanon? Remember you wanted to talk about your headcanon.
So this is what Kelly the genie was doing before Weird Science. This is the people she was messing around with and making them grow up? Because she plays actually a very similar character to Kelly in this movie. And yeah, she does a fine acting job.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story of schmucks. They're all bad people who are trying to grow up, but way too late. And my very short hot take on Hanky Panky, as much as I love that, Gilda Radner and Gene Wilder got to meet each other and come together and, got to know each other over this movie. And Sidney Poitier directed this movie. Cloak and Dagger was a better version of this movie. With kids. It was a better movie. And Sidney Poitier definitely has too much ego. I'm pretty certain he hired a black man to play him in the movie, who has no words at all throughout the whole movie. He just has a lot of strong emoting. And I feel like he's just there to emote Sidney Poitier's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Since he was directing, not acting in this movie. And it's weird. As much as I like Sidney Poitier as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
It's him as a director, he definitely still had growing to do at this point. Not a movie I could really recommend. It's go watch Cloak and Dagger. It's better quality. Rhinoceros. Again, this is art. And everyone dealing with their sanity. And it's kind of everyone's 20s.
Also, it originally started as a French play. Enough said. Okay.
And it definitely is did you ever wonder what happened to the people, to the characters after the producers? Go watch Rhinoceros. This is what they did after the producers failed. They became these guys having nervous breakdowns still. And you very much see how Mel Brooks is a better director. than whoever directed Rhinoceros. It's just, again. It helps if your director is also a bit of a writer and so knows how to change things for specific actors to get the best out of them. And that's why in Rhinoceros, again, it's just, But it is probably time for another breaky break.
Okay.
I could definitely use a bathroom visit.
Let me press the buttons. Recommend y'all take a little breaky break. Make sure you have something to drink. Check in with your bladder. We will see you in just a few minutes. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Welcome, welcome. How'd you like my layout?
I thought it looked good.
Apparently, I wasn't using my custom layout option enough, and StreamYard literally emailed me to let me know.
It was an option.
They wanted to alert me. Oh, we lost. Oh, wait. I don't know what.
My microphone and it took me off screen.
Yeah, that was like, how did that happen? I wasn't even touching the screen at that moment.
Yeah, I've actually set up one of the custom layouts because when the new album comes out, I was going to do a live stream on the music channel and actually talk about all the songs.
Awesome.
And so I did a custom layout to have the cover on the screen and me in a different place, so that it would look nifty. It was really easy to make and kind of fun.
Yeah, that's what I found by using. I got this one. I also have this one, which leaves space for like a share screen or something. And that is all I have done so far. I haven't really done too much with it, but yes, I have been playing with it.
Apparently, this is just a twitchy day for Spence.
Screams in neurodivergent Pinterest, mom. Probably mom. Why am I like this? Oh no, she's having a raccoon washing soap problem. I'm so sorry. It is something that mean people do to raccoons, y'all.
Stop describing my day.
They hand them a bar of soap because raccoons have to wash everything, especially before they eat it, and it smells good. Like if you hand them like a fruity Bath and Body Works type or Body Shop type soap, you hand them that and they're going to wash it. And then they're going to wash it again 4 hours later. Please help me. I can't stop washing this little sliver. It is how you keep a raccoon busy all day. It's kind of cruel.
I have an entire shopping bag of raccoon entertainment.
Yes.
You have a whole shopping bag of soaps? Soaps and cotton candy? Things to destroy a raccoon's sense of well-being.
Yeah. So we definitely have plenty of other movies to talk about. Gloria and I were chatting.
Yes, Tom was here.
Yes, also on another quick one, Haunted Honeymoon. I'm surprised. It's actually well written. It is overall a good movie. Why is it not talked about? Because they committed a cardinal sin against the audience.
The rudest of sins.
Which was, they essentially what we now call pulled a Shyamalan.
What a twist.
Where they pulled a twist that the audience was not aware of. It's not that they missed cues from you. They just bold outright did it poorly on purpose so the audience wouldn't know. And then at the end it was a twist. And it was so bad, it upset the audience. And so no one wants to talk about it. And no one wants to see it again because it frustrates them and upsets them, even though it's all good actors in this movie. They're all really well done. And it's a great pastiche about, murder. And what were the other radio plays of the 50s? There were all these, high drama.
Really, it was actually supposed to be of the 30s. It's the radio plays of the 30s because that was the height, as well as the noir movies of the 20s and 30s, including films like The Black Cat. I don't know. There is a list. Hi, Anne.
But yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good story. It's very much a pastiche of Dorothy L. Sayers' murder mysteries.
And if you like Haunted Honeymoon, I can talk, I promise. I highly recommend you check out Dorothy L. Sayers' books. Particularly, I think this is actually a take on The Busman's Holiday. But really check out, there are various audio radio productions of Dorothy L. Sayers that if you like Haunted Honeymoon, you're going to love these audio radio style productions with special effects and all that. It's fantastic.
Well, I will agree with you that the acting is good. The writing, for the most part, yes, I will also agree is good. There is very few quicker ways to put me into an irrational rage than Haunted Honeymoon.
Understandable.
It just it's kind of like when they put the Happening up on streaming, and I was reminded that movie existed. And everyone around me had to know that I saw it on screen because I would go into a 20-minute rant that this movie exists.
I almost canceled the stream.
So again, like
Brian almost canceled the streaming service over it.
Haunted Honeymoon's real crime is the twist at the ending, which I shall now ruin it for you all so you won't get too mad. It was all a dream. It was actually a production. And they did not really take the audience with them in the transition. We looked back and we're like, where's the transition? There's got to be a place. There is the weakest of weak transitions. It's not even a good transition. It does not tell us, oh, now we are in the play within a play. And therein is his major crime. Just for the record, though, who did it better? Delirious. The film with John Candy.
Yes.
Highly recommend. John Candy in Delirious, they actually did it right. They show he gets a head injury. He gets a smack on the head from a car trunk. And when he wakes up, he is, as he put it, I'm in hell. I am in my own soap opera. Oh, no. We don't have the budget for this. And so everything that happens afterwards, as fantastical as it is, the audience is fine with, because it was taken with, the audience was taken into this delusion. And we know it's a delusion. We know he's having a good time in it, and that it's not for serious. We're not expected to believe this is the real world where a magical typewriter can really force people to do things against their will. Also, Len, what a great mechanic. Anyway, that's a whole nother.
But yeah, that's what you don't hear about Haunted Honeymoon that much.
Yeah, like honestly, if somebody would just recut it. I don't know if there's extra stuff that was cut out, like there's the deleted scenes, but if somebody could just recut it where the transition is very obvious that this is all in Gene Wilder's character's head, that he has, again, had a knock on the head. The boom mic fell on him and he is unconscious and he is dreaming the play they've already rehearsed. Then I could believe that. The rest of it would be fine and I could have a really good time with how absolutely flippin' ridiculous it gets. Also, they're not on a honeymoon. They haven't gotten married yet. I hate this title.
There's so many things that make
I'm totally okay.
I mean, they are literally referencing an old movie from that time called Haunted Honeymoon.
By Dorothy L. Sayers, by the way, based on one of Dorothy L. Sayers' novels.
Yeah.
Lord Whimsy. Can somebody send me a Lord Whimsy? Okay, thanks.
Lord Peter Whimsy.
But I mean,
would
it
like
is
my very own Peter Whimsy, please. Okay, thanks.
That movie is Dom DeLuise at his most Dom DeLuise.
Yes.
Like, I mean, it is the pure, like, they just distilled Dom DeLuise into the things that he was known best for and just put a generous dose of it into the movie.
But I mean, no one should be upset in this or feel cringe at Dom DeLuise playing Aunt Kate.
Like, he is not playing it like a man in a dress, which frankly sometimes gets on my freaking nerves when it's a man in a dress. By the way, like, I have top 3 men playing women's roles, and they are in order of my favorites. What's his name from the first version of St. Trinian's? What's his Rupert something or other from the second version of St. Trinian's, and Dom DeLuise as Aunt Kate in Haunted Honeymoon. Because again, they're not mocking women. They really are just trying to be good actors in the role and really bringing their posh to womanhood, which I frankly approve of. Also, when Rupert, what's his name, totally embarrasses Colin Firth for being a Tory snob. Yes, please. Yes, absolutely. After he threw her dog into a wood chipper. Totally deserved.
I do have a feeling though that Dom DeLuise is trying to out Divine.
Oh yes, we actually were talking about that during the break. By
Like,
the way, if you have a more expensive StreamYard account, you can have a green room where we could have all been having this discussion during the break. Just that was part of the email too, by the way. But they're like, hey, custom layouts, and also if you bought the more expensive version, like, baby, I don't have the money for this one. Hey y'all, did y'all know I have memberships to help pay for this?
But yeah, that's mostly what I wanted to talk about Honeymoon, of just it's a good movie. Why does no one talk about it much? And it's because they committed a sin against their audience, and their audience rebelled because it upset them.
It pre-Shyamalama the Shyamalan.
Also, as Tom points out, wow, look at boomers trying to understand right before consent was invented.
Yeah. Whew.
Because that's exactly what happened. The guy doesn't know he's a patient of his uncle, and his girlfriend, his fiance, doesn't know he's a patient either. Y'all, before consent was invented. Look how far the baby boomers have come, having grown up in this world.
But you show, like, yeah, they've been trying to grow as well. It's just, society grows slow. It's understandable why everyone is so twitchy in this society where they will take away your rights before you even know they've taken away your rights and not tell you. That's a rough world to live in.
Yeah.
Another movie that is hard for me to talk about just because it is triggering. Oddly, now that I'm older and I know more, is Stir Crazy.
Oh.
Because it is so accurate. A description of the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
And and part to me of what makes it accurate is this whole, everyone is not always on edge in a prison, just waiting for a chance to stab each other.
Mm-hmm.
They are just trying to get along in this forced society they are in, just like anyone else.
About that.
And it's the prisoners are not the enemies of each other. It is the people in power who are the actual dangerous enemies.
Yes.
That's true.
As somebody who knows some prison guards, oh God, they are the devil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that is. I mean, if you, it's a good movie. It's a decent comedy, and it is definitely Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder doing their best. And really, and Stir Crazy really helped show me why Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor are a good duo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually the secret for any duo in a movie or a play. And it's, they can keep up with each other's ability to go from 0 to 60.
Well, I think the other thing that's a bit triggering about Stir Crazy is it was made at a time when the prison industrial complex is really gearing up. And it feels like you can hear the background discussions that they had heard that inspired some of the events of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's not...
I mean, with stuff already going on.
So somewhere in there is more truth than we know. Like they were adding in somebody's story into this, or several people's story that they collaged together. But you really get the feeling that they were trying to figure out what their next project would be and got onto this topic. And yeah, like, I mean, you can feel that it's got that behind the scenes-ness enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough of a comedy to cover up the real world, that issues that they were dealing with, in a way that a lot of comedies of this type try to candy coat things. Like even Blazing Saddles, while it runs head first at racism in a very unflinching way, has this surrealism about it that still gives you a distance.
Yeah, a little bit of emotional distance.
Versus this one, we get to see what would you call it? White middle class privilege disillusionment in action
Yes.
as this movie's one of its movie's main themes,
Mhm.
which, you know, for some people might be cathartic and definitely worth a watch. But yeah, like, oh, that's art. It was more art than I was expecting for a comedy.
It would be a much, much darker film if made today.
Yeah. Yeah, versus let's talk a little bit about Blazing Saddles, why that works. Why it's remembered so well, and why, despite what, you know, faux news would say, you could totally make this movie nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
People would still enjoy it today.
Well, one of the things that I think makes it work, and I've talked about this a little bit already, but it's that kind of wink and a nod that Gene Wilder has of, okay, this is about to get ridiculous. That moment of, okay, guys, are you ready? Like, it's not an overt, hey guys, are you ready? But he gets this look in his eyes and his face right before something outlandishly either awful or hilarious or something that happens.
Well, you can.
And so you feel like you're in on the joke more than being told the joke.
I mean, it's both showing both good writing and editing and acting.
Mhm.
It did have to all come together for it, because you see Gene Wilder throughout this definitely plays Slowpoke Rodriguez
Mhm.
in this movie. He starts very slow. He starts so slow you start to wonder if he's moving. And then it is a logarithmic progression as it just ramps up faster and faster and doubles every second how fast he's moving till the end where it's just whoop! And that is part of what works in the comedy and just the storytelling of it. Keeps starting really slow and you're just like, what's the point? And then you get distracted for a moment with a little side comment that, you know, Mel Brooks puts in, and then you're like, wait, what's going on now? And then you just start getting pulled along as things speed up.
And I don't know if you'll agree with this take or not, but every time I hear somebody say that you couldn't do Blazing Saddles today, I'm just like, have you never seen Django Unchained? Django Unchained is Blazing Saddles without the humor.
Yes. I agree.
It's as if you take all of the jokes and all of the humor out of Blazing Saddles, it becomes Django. It becomes Django Unchained. And Quentin Tarantino did not get canceled for that movie.
No,
none of the cast got canceled for that movie. It is lauded and quoted way more than I ever expected it to be.
I mean, really, you could sort of retitle Django Unchained to Blazing Saddles Unhinged.
You could.
Yes. I concur.
Because as far as
like whenever I hear that, it's like, no, people totally are trying to remake this movie constantly and retell this story because it's still pertinent.
And it all comes down to the one thing that people don't understand about humor and why something like Blazing Saddles works. Humor does not work when you punch down. We say this all the time. And that's the whole shtick of Blazing Saddles. As we talked about last week, when we talked about Mel Brooks, the few times the N-word is used in anger, there are consequences. There's immediate apologies. There are ramifications for it. It is not punching down at any of the characters that are in the movie. All of the punches are clearly up, maybe one or two to the side, but most of them are clearly punching upward. And that's what makes it work. It's not funny when you are pointing at any group and going, look at them, aren't they just ridiculous? That's making fun of someone, not telling a joke. It's a very different thing.
Yeah. And that's why people still watch it lovingly. And why it has aged so well, because, again, it is not punching down. Movies that punch down don't age well.
Yeah.
That is the problem with the scary movies.
And why a lot of the Westerns that inspired it really aged poorly. Because they are all doing the down punch. They are all like, look at those people over there, whoever those people are, whether they were the Chinese immigrants, whether they were the Mexicans to the south, whether they were the black characters, the Native American characters. Dear God, the treatment of Native American characters.
The
The
treatment
humor,
of Shoshone.
yeah, the humor is always punching down. It's always mocking those characters, and those movies don't work now because
Or just straight up derogatory.
Yeah.
It's just, aren't they incompetent, humans?
it's just stereotypes. And what Blazing Saddles understands is the best comedic use for a stereotype is to make fun of it. When Cleavon puts on the full stereotype that they're expecting of him to have, and just they
Bugs
are
Bunny's it.
yeah, and they don't realize he's making fun of them at first. Like, he
I
uses it
get
to
no
mock-
kick from champagne. Mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all, but I get a kick out of you. Yeah, no, not that. No. Oh, what? Camptown ladies sing this song, do down, do down. Yeah, like, why does the song go? Tell us more. And how it wasn't supposed to be Gene in that role, and how it ended up being magnificent.
Mhm.
Because Gene, as we've said earlier, has no edge compared to Mel Brooks.
Yeah, he doesn't play to the edge. There's no edge with Gene Wilder. There is just it all the way, baby. Oh, baby, you are so talented, and they are so dumb. Salt
Yeah.
of the earth. Morons. Can't we all relate?
Yeah, I did want to make sure to get that in of like why it still works.
I'll be here.
A lesser appreciated of Gene Wilder's movies, not what you're thinking. As much as if you enjoy, or especially if your father enjoys Silver Streak, go try to source a copy of Sherlock's Smarter Brother. Because Silver Streak is simply Sherlock in modern times, at the contemporary times when it was made.
You're not wrong.
Richard Pryor is Watson. The bad guy is absolutely Moriarty. Tell me the difference between Silver Streak's Moriarty and the modern Sherlock Holmes with what's his face?
Cumberbatch?
Huh?
Cumberbatch or Robert Downey Jr.?
Robert Downey Jr.
Okay.
Tell me the difference between those two Moriartys. I can't find any.
You got a
They're
point
the same
there.
person.
Yeah.
But Sherlock's Smarter Brother is actually is an even better
I
comedy.
didn't think I was going to like it, to be perfectly honest.
Same.
I
It sounds
really,
like a dumb premise, and people have done it so badly.
and honestly, the first 5 minutes, I'm like, I'm not going to like this. This is so 70s. I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to like it.
Yeah.
So this was apparently while Gene Wilder and Madeline Kahn were dating, or else at least they were dating when when Gene Wilder wrote this, and they filmed it in London, which is why you actually see in this movie a bunch of the actors from previous movies Gene Wilder made in England. So you're going to see the guy who played Veruca Salt's father from Willy Wonka. You're going to see actually a bunch of people, as well as a bunch of people, quite honestly, who also headlined on The Muppet Show, including Marty Feldman. It's like, and Madeline Kahn, who also was on The Muppet Show. I was just,
Really, it's Marty Feldman, Madeline Kahn, and Gene Wilder.
And they are having a great time. Now, I will say, there's supposed to be this seduction scene that is just odd. Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm neurodivergent.
No, Gene
Or maybe
Wilder.
I'm saying it because I'm not heterosexual. I'm not sure.
No, Gene Wilder should just never do any kind of seduction,
Weird.
period.
She's shrieking, but like in joy, but it's just they're taking off clothes. They haven't actually they're not even touching. It's weird. I will say this, though. What great costumes they wore, and the set design in this very strange seduction scene as he's trying to get information out of her, and he's sexually exciting her by undressing himself and her. And I don't get it. That's the one scene that I honestly looked away. Like, it was just weird. I didn't understand what was happening. Anyway, he finally gets the information. Yes, there is no edge, just a horizon line. Agreed. That is the only. What is this? Oh, this is weird. I mean, there's some ridiculous stuff. Marty Feldman will always bring the equally ridiculous, like Gene Wilder.
Again, an actor taken too young.
The costumes are amazing. Y'all, the costumes. Yeah, there's a 70s kind of pull to these historical costumes, but honestly, these are some great sets. And there's some cameos by other actors who played Sherlock in this who like will turn to the camera and break the fourth wall real quick. So that's kind of fun, actually. But if you grew up watching Sherlock Holmes type stories like we did, and also, let's be honest, if you have lived through the 20th century thus far, more than likely you've heard other people talking about Sherlock and the Sherlock Holmes movies, and you did not hate them, you might enjoy this. If you hated them, you also might enjoy this, because it's definitely taking the piss out of Sherlock Holmes stories, while also kind of having fun and playing with the genre of the, consulted detective kind of vibe. Yeah, by the way, there's also, like, I can't remember what's his name, who was from Are You Being Served, who played the head of the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he did it. Huh?
The one who played Captain Peacock?
No, not Peacock, the other one, the one who was over Peacock.
Yeah.
Rumsfeld or something?
That's what I was about to say.
He plays a doofus. I don't know. Stop walking like a woman. What?
He plays dumb so well.
Yeah, he does. He really does play the doofus so well. I almost wanted to smack myself. So it is fun. It's lighthearted. It is a popcorn film. It's like, I swear to God, it's the only popcorn film Gene Wilder ever did in his career.
Every time you say that, I just scan his IMDb page because I'm like, no, I will be able to. No, I can't prove you wrong. Like, every time I feel challenged.
Welcome to It's Art.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the one film I think he just did for fun so that he and Madeline Kahn could do something together. Like after Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Like they did it right after, I gather. Or
and
maybe
never forget, any movie you see with Madeline Kahn playing a sexualized role is absolute rebellion for the time, because Jewish women were not sexual at this time. And so for her to be cast in this is truly a wait, what?
Yeah, that is the subversion. Anytime a Jewish woman is portrayed as sexually interesting, but not objectified, that is subversion, because Jewish women are traditionally portrayed as nags, crones, neurotic to the point they're unsexy. They just, the male gaze just slides off them. And so Madeline Kahn being intelligent but also sexy, that is the subversiveness right there.
Madeline Kahn, the woman who stabbed the male gaze in the eye.
Yeah. And said, "You're not wrong, but how dare you look at me this way?" I can relate. But yeah, I actually recommend The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. If you are looking for something fun, a popcorn film that you can watch, give it a try. We were genuinely surprised. We had never seen this movie before. We'd never even heard anybody talk about it. And certainly nobody talks about it well. But this holds the genre correctly and also lampoons it at the same time. That is not easy to do.
No, it really isn't.
No, it shows you how smart Gene Wilder was and how creative he was.
I think this actually may be the best portrayal, most accurate portrayal of Moriarty, including the fact where he's having trouble doing lower math. Oh, God. If that is not every math professor I've ever met in my life, God forbid they add, subtract, multiply, or divide. I mean, seriously, if you want to see them stumped, just get them to add or subtract something. It's hilarious.
You're not wrong. And no, I don't feel slightly called out by those remarks. Not at all.
Well, I used to think I hated math till I found calculus. I absolutely understand. Like, higher maths are still way more fun. But money.
And then sort of onto the other side of
Young Frankenstein?
yeah. Again, kind of like Sherlock, of where, like, if anything, Gene's just probably felt a little bit inspired. Is like, well, let me do my own version of this. So let me take a historical character piece and do my own send up of it as a comedy. Because Young Frankenstein is very much a surprisingly accurate depiction of the Frankenstein Prometheus story.
Yeah, Prometheus Unbound.
While absolutely lampooning and just stabbing it through for the problems Hollywood has introduced to the story.
I think one of the things that makes this movie work is that I don't know who in the creative team actually understood what Mary Shelley was trying to do with that book, but somebody did, and that's why it comes across both accurate and stabbing it in the heart. Remember, the name Prometheus Unbound is not actually a reference to the new Prometheus, is not a reference to the Prometheus of legend. It was a reference to a book that Mary Shelley had all manner of problems with, that was basically a novel about the romance of unaliving oneself. That's the reference that she was making when she wrote the book. And when you understand that and you reread Frankenstein, this is a story about life, death, and survival, and what those ideas mean. And that's what you see actually captured in Young Frankenstein that most other adaptations of the story completely miss. The Young Frankenstein is a story about embracing life, even in its weirdest and wackiest aspects. And still follows through on that response letter, because that's really what Frankenstein is it's a really long angry Tumblr post about a book that she read and did not like.
Look, there is a long history of successful shitposting. And that's what it is. Mary Shelley was just shitposting. It's good for her.
A long tradition.
She happened to, in the process, invent a new genre. Yay! Actually, she invented 2 new genres.
I mean, that is what the origin of the Bible is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shitposting? Yeah.
Yes. It's just
I know, seriously. Yeah, what is it? The last book? What is it?
Revelations.
Thank you. It's just an entire book of shitposts.
We hate Rome, but we're not allowed to say it.
I mean, but who doesn't? Really?
Have the numerology.
I mean, the first couple books in the Old Testament aren't any different.
Yeah. I mean, truly, when we talk about writing, we're talking about mostly shitposting.
So what's going to give you enough dopamine to write all of this out and to make a coherent story about it? Oh, something that is frustrating and annoying and other people don't see it yet.
Shitposting. It's what humans do.
Because with Frankenstein being a angry screed against what Nietzsche would call passive nihilism, this idea of everything's terrible, so just embrace how crappy everything is. That understanding that core is what makes Young Frankenstein work, because every character in there, even the monster, is fighting against that idea of just accepting how trash circumstances can be. Everything in that movie is trying to find joy and is Marie Kondoing its way through gag after gag, trying to find where that joy is.
Yes.
And it makes the movie work on so many levels that not only is it a great comedy because it understands how to do the jokes, but it embraces that spirit that the original book was written in a way that, like, as much as I love the Boris Karloff film, that's a monster movie.
Yeah.
It loses the subtlety. It doesn't have the subtext that the original story had. It's been simplified down to a creature feature, which is what it was intended to be.
Yes.
No shade against it, but most versions of Frankenstein that are made are pastiches of that movie and not the book.
Yeah.
And if I fall asleep, I have a purring kitty on my chest.
Oh no.
But again, that's why this movie has survived.
Yeah.
Why people still talk about it, because there is so much in there to talk about and to recognize, and at the same time laugh hilariously about, because it is punching up at those who cause the situation, not those who are suffering under it.
Because it doesn't even really take the time to punch down at the townspeople, which a lot of comedy versions of Frankenstein do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the townspeople's concerns and issues with it are legitimate. They are not just, you know, rednecks, you backwoods, small-minded people. They are legitimate concerns.
And again, it's another one of those movies, like so many, both from Mel Brooks, which we were talking about last week, and the Gene Wilder movies we're talking about this week. The cast makes the movie. Anyone else's Igor, the movie falls apart. The musical version of it is interesting, but they're all trying to recreate that actor, not even the character. They're all trying to recreate that actor because it's the actor made it work. All the way through, from even with Gene Hackman as the blind hermit, the casting was so spot on that it brought more to the movie than it would have had without it. You could have the same jokes, the same beats, the same tempo, but if you don't have the actors that could pull it off, I feel like it's almost a miracle that these movies were made, looking at the way casting is done now.
Yes.
Where it's just, because you never would have gotten a lot of the people, I just lost his name, Peter, what's his name, who played Frankenstein, the actual monster.
Peter Cook? No.
He was not a cinema at the time that this movie was made. And so in a modern version of this, they would have pushed, at least, if not forced, a bigger name actor. Peter Boyle.
Yeah.
That's it. But
Marty Feldman.
Yeah.
Not a Hollywood look. And like that is one of the actual issues with the nepotism that everybody's talking about right now, is it's really not giving room for diverse people to come into the medium. Like that's one of the problems, is everybody's looking more and more polished, and they're looking similar and more similar, and they're not looking diverse or interesting or new stuff, because it's all being crowded out by, this person has connections and they have references and they already have an IMDb page because their parents have been sure to get them into as small roles in various films, TV shows, or any other production that they were involved in. Literally, I was watching a really bad rom-com TV show on Hulu the other day. The showrunner is Maggie Mull. So, of course, her father, Martin Mull, showed up. And, y'all, the set, I told Thomas, it looks like the Dante's Cove set. Only it's not a racy, kind of drama. It's a very boring middle-class problems kind of drama, except the main character, Maggie, who is not played by Maggie Mull, is a psychic, like an actual psychic with actual abilities. What? It is wild. But again, Dante's Cove set, it's strange. It's surreal. Why will nobody take their shirt off? Anyway.
I mean, Laura, let's be honest though. Maggie is just the spiritual send-up of Ugly Betty.
It's like It's like the second version of Charmed, and Ugly Betty had a baby, and it's called Maggie. But I mean, yeah, that the set, it really. Tom watched an episode with. He's like, it really does look like Dante's Cove. It really does look like some back lot where they filmed part of Dante's Cove.
Truly how I know I'm among my people, because nobody else even knows that series existed. Though I have tricked a lot of people into watching it during the heights of Arrow's popularity, because I was like, one of his first roles was in this little indie series, being very, very mean to people, called Dante's Cove. He played a character named Adam.
I mean,
I'm really hoping the devil shows up in the second season of this show. It's re-up.
But if anyone talks crap about Dante's Cove, the line I would use is, "Look, it's still better than Baywatch Nights."
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I could not get through Baywatch Nights.
How can you ruin being steamy?
Why?
There are ways.
Why? Why would you ruin being steamy? I just need people to be scantily clad and glistening. Is that too much to ask for?
Yes.
Yeah, because people think that they have to do something else on top of that, and that's where things fall apart. They don't understand the genre. You don't understand the genre.
I need men to do poses similar to house cats, okay? And glisten with like barely any clothes on. And, if the women want to do that too, that would be great, but not required. I really, though, need the men to lounge like house cats everywhere. Even at the grocery store, where it's definitely not appropriate. I need them to do this. Suddenly, I need a park bench in the butcher section. Okay.
Honestly, it's one of the reasons why The Gray Man worked, because, while I believe both of the Russo brothers are straight, they understand the man candiness of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know, like, if we're gonna get the bigger audience, we're gonna get the men in that want the action movie and watch them be like tough beat 'em up men. But there has to be the eye candy, so the girlfriends and just women that are interested in that and the gay folk show up as well.
The gays need their payment.
But
haven't they suffered enough? Give them scantily clad people glistening in body oils.
But like this, getting back to young Frankenstein,
sure.
That cast is what makes this movie, and the relationships between the cast is what makes the movie. Mm-hmm. And this is where, especially with the current conversation that's going on about nepotism in Hollywood and in all of these things, certain groups work well together, and that's why they're popular. There's a difference between getting a job because we make good films together, and I got this job because my daddy was rich and got me all of the breaks. Mm-hmm. And I see that's getting lost a little bit in the conversation, at least in the discourse side of the conversation, where just knowing people in Hollywood is bad if you're going to be in.
Yeah, we're talking about, what's his name, whose dad paid for him to have a musical just so he could win a Tony. Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, he was in, what is it, Love, Simon or something?
Yep.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, Dear Evan
That's
Hansen.
it. It's like, I don't know, it's a gay musical.
Of like, his dad just paid for that just to get him an award.
But like, whether people like it or not, like, there's a reason why a lot of the Mel Brooks movies work. It's because these people got to know each other and knew how to riff off of each other. They knew how to play off of each other's energy. It's why a lot of the Gene Wilder stuff works, because again, he knew a lot of these people from previous films and knew that they would have the energy to, be able to play off of each other. Christopher Guest made an entire career off of this. Like, my friends and I are going to shoot a film over and it's good. We're not even going to do a script. We're going to have a loose idea, but we know that we can play.
We've got an outline. Isn't that enough?
Yeah, we can play off of each other's energy enough to make this work. And that kind of filmmaking works because if you have Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy side by side, they're going to be great no matter what they're doing, because they've been working together forever. They know each
Yeah.
other's comedic timing.
It's the same reason why, the real reason I think on YouTube, It's a Southern Thing really took off is Talia and I can't remember the guy's name offhand.
Adam Schwartz.
Adam Schwartz. They work so well together.
Yeah, as when they did those couples,
Yeah.
they did these various skits of the Southern couple, doing very Southern things. And they just had really good chemistry together and seemed very believable, even though they are not married to each other at all.
And when we're having those discussions, like, you don't see people talking about the levies, because like Schitt's Creek worked because they knew each other well enough. They felt safe enough that they could set each other up for the jokes. They could go into some very real places, which that show did in its absurd comedy style. But that level of familiarity, that is a good thing when people actually have comedic timing. Like, he knew his sister didn't have the best comedic timing. Is she still in the show? Yes, but she plays a character she can actually play, the waitress. And she works in that role. Finding the right people for the part is getting rarer and rarer and rarer, which is why, and I'm not going to judge the movie till I get to see it, but everybody freaked out about the Super Mario Brothers movie. Because we all know Chris Pratt got the job because Chris Pratt is still on the rising star. Like, the Jurassic World movies were not able to destroy him. Like, he's going to be around for a bit.
It is impressive.
Like, he's going to be around for a while, and that's why he got cast. That does not mean that he necessarily won't be able to do the job well, because honestly, Mario and Andy Dwyer are not dissimilar characters from each other. So if he just plays Andy, it would work. So I'm not saying that it's going to necessarily be a bad movie because he's in it, but that's why there was an outrage, because of course it's him. Because who else are you going to cast for that? And I'm a little, when I look back at some of these great ensemble cast movies, because I feel like for so many of these films, we could really, even if they're not formally structured like that, that's what makes them work, is that ensemble cast of actors that that are able to feed off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not going to allow a space for that to grow, comedy is just going to get staler and staler and staler. It's why, like, the Chris Tucker movies, they get made, but none of these people have chemistry with each other. Like, yes, there are some funny moments in there because, Jackie Chan can be funny. Chris Tucker can occasionally be funny, right? Central Intelligence. It's not hard to be funny when you're using Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the straight man, because, well, there are times when you wonder, does he understand jokes? And so you could say anything around him and have him give a deadpan look at you, and it's just funny because part of your mind is like, did he just not get the joke? Does he not understand? But you're going to get more movies like that if you're not encouraging these kinds of ensemble casts to come together.
I mean, it's kind of why we have hopes for Chicago.
Yes.
Where they are keeping most of the cast, but they are changing their characters for these new roles for them to be in.
I'm really hoping they get a third season, because I'd be very curious to see their take on 80s and 90s musicals.
Yes.
Who's going to dress up like a cat or a dog? Like, somebody needs to be in a dog suit.
Yes, I need that.
Like, it's all going to be like Rent and Cats is what I theorize. Yes, please.
I can think of like at least 5 actors that they've had in there that I would desperately love just for the kitsch of it. To see,
you want to pet my tail? You can pet my tail. Like, I don't know you like that.
because I kind of want to see Alan Cummings in either a cat or a dog suit doing a send up of his character from Cabaret.
Yes. Oh my God!
Yes, so famous. Like, I could see the Schmigadoon universe doing this.
Yes, me too.
I need it.
It's like, oh, please, Apple, give them a third season. Because I know nobody's getting like a fourth season anymore because of the stats on this. Like, that's why they're only doing 3 seasons. Because at the 4th season, in the deals, they have to give the showrunner so much more money. And like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple are like, oh, hard yes. So everybody only gets 2 to 3 seasons. But it's like, please let them at least finish the century. Please.
But the Schmigadoon and the upcoming Schmicago are good examples of what I'm talking about. None of these people have, I guess maybe, what's his name? Keegan-Michael Key might have the draw. Like Alan Cumming kind of does, because I know me and some of my friends really like his work. But there are only a couple names that are in this show that would have that kind of draw effect.
I mean, I am always kind of curious whenever you hear Kristen Chenoweth doing something of like, what is she doing?
And who is her latest toy?
But the way
she's always got one. Every time I see her, she's like, I'm streaming from my house. And there's like a new guy in the background. And I'm like, did she literally tell him to show up and then not wear his shirt? Because that is exactly what is happening. I love it. I love it that she's become an elder gay. I love that about Kristen Chenoweth. Like, yes,
oh boy.
Oh, he's just brought the groceries. Oh, come here, show them on camera. Like,
oh, you know she has an Agador Spartacus.
Yes, absolutely. They're always like, oh, hi, I was just bringing groceries with no shirt on, sir? Sure. But yes, I love that she's an elder gay now. God bless her. That's fantastic.
But there has to be room for shows like this to exist.
Like these ensemble kind of acting troop shows
that are brought together by the love of something.
Yes.
Because that's why Schmigadoon works. And a lot of these musical comedies don't. Is you can tell everyone that is there loves musicals. That love,
and they're known for musicals as well. Like these are.
They all hold their own in the musical world. Like they are all big deals in their own right, but they're also okay with sharing the space with the other actors.
And they really have that feel of a bunch of theater kids were riffing backstage and went, could this be a show?
Yes.
Which, if you've ever hung out with a lot of theater kids, at some point you'll hear one of them stop and go, wait, could this be the show? Because that happens. And sometimes, yes, it becomes the show. But when I look back at some of these great movies that we had in the past, going even to Kevin Smith, like his early work, that's what it was. Like this was that group of friends that they understood what they were capable of doing. They had a strange passion for the work that they were putting together, and that made magic. That's the real alchemy that is necessary to get a creative work to truly be transcendent.
And that's why Ben Affleck keeps showing up.
Yeah.
For scale.
It's that and for the Duncans, you know.
Yeah.
Duncans and cigarettes is all Kevin Smith can promise.
But it's that love of the thing. It's why John Waters movies are classics.
Yeah.
There's something magical.
Joel will show up if John Waters is there. Like, yeah.
There's something magical that happens when a bunch of people are getting together because they really do care about the thing or want it to be good or just want to be with these people. There's a magical chemistry that gets brought out that really makes the work better than the sum of its parts.
I mean, it's a lot of what saves Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah.
He's not an amazing writer, and he's only a decent director, but he's got a cast that love to do this, and they all love to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Rian Johnson. Like, I love a lot of the movies that he's done.
I'm thinking of like American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Because it's now, from what I understand, like it's not something I watch because I need to sleep at night. But from what I understand, he's actually brought back whole troops of people to like revisit these various seasons.
Yep.
And again, you're going to get such better chemistry with people when they've known their fellow actors for a while, they've worked with them, and so they have a rapport. They know the amount of space a person needs in a scene, and they can accommodate that. And essentially, it's like dancing partners. It's like us. Like Tom and I, we have been talking for literally decades. And Charlie, we have had the opportunity to get to know you and Brian so well that we also like, it's like one of these of, oh, I know I don't have to like worry too much about background information. Charlie will have also studied this. Da da da. And so it's like, oh, okay, I know if Charlie's going to be there, I can relax because Charlie will have already done a bunch of the background work too. So I don't have to carry the load all by myself.
You just have to do the color commentary.
But that's
Aubergine is a beautiful color today on the football field. Don't you all want to come and out and support our boys?
But that's Gene Wilder's superpower. He put together troops of actors that were right for the projects that he's in. Even the movies that we've talked about that we haven't really liked, we're always talking about, but the cast is good. The acting is good. He knew how to bring the right people into the project to make the project the best it could be for what it was. And that is a rare talent and something to really be celebrated. He understood what it was to be the underdog. And you can see the actors that he brings in, that he carries with him from film to film to film, are those kind of, for lack of better terms, the lost puppies he's picked up along the way of like, oh, I see you're struggling like I'm struggling. Hey, I'm doing this movie. You'd be perfect for it. I'm going to argue with them until they put you in it. Is that okay with you? And when you hear other actors that worked with him talking about their relationship with him, I really get the feeling that that's what he was doing behind the scenes, is arguing for a lot of these people to be present in these movies because he knew, no, they're the right person. This is the person that I need.
Like, I mean, to just talk about when we talked briefly about the beginning, but Funny About Love is definitely a movie about Gene Wilder in many ways. I mean, this guy is a romantic and can be a bit acerbic. But one of the things I found really fascinating in this movie was one, just like Haunted Honeymoon, it's one of the few movies where you ever actually see how something very specialized is done without Hollywoodizing it. So in Funny About Love, they actually show what IVF at the time was done. Here's all the steps they had to do. Here's the difficulties. But here's what it really looked like. And the same for Haunted Honeymoon, where we actually see what a full set of doing a radio play would have looked like at the time. Gloria was actually doing some research. And apparently...
I had heard, so this was actually, I knew this fact from back when I was more active in Libraryland. But I found out from another librarian who was a film archivist and was film and radio. She worked for one of those film and radio kind of museums. And she said that it turns out there actually was very little video documentation of how radio productions of plays or live shows of a radio play nature were produced, were actually done. And so how did you have Foley artists in the same room with an actual orchestra with the actors and all the microphones and direction? Where the director is in the booth directing everybody. They actually had very little video documentation. At least she said this was like the early 2000s when they were actually trying to make documentation of essentially how media was made. Particularly past media. And she's like, we used clips from Haunted Honeymoon because we had very little quality documentation of how radio productions operated. So we used clips from Haunted Honeymoon because there's surprisingly little at the time that was available. She said there's maybe a little more, but a lot of it had to be... So film doesn't age well, particularly the kinds of video film they used to use. A lot of it has either spontaneously burns, or it disintegrates. But a lot of it has, thankfully through AI, has been preserved. But this is only in the last 5 to 8 years. But yeah, for a long time, historians and researchers were using Haunted Honeymoon as examples of how radio productions were functioned when they did these kind of shows, because they had very little realistic. And this, because Gene Wilder wanted such true attention to detail, this is all historically accurate. All of that part is historically accurate of how it functioned. You had the orchestra in the back, and you would have the actors and their mics in the front, and the Foley artist would be on one side. And like all of that was actually accurate. And so they were able to use footage from Haunted Honeymoon for that. So yeah, it was used for many years, and I think it still is used actually by historians and by people training people on what this looked like. Because when you are dealing with sound and ancient audio equipment, let's be honest, 1930s audio equipment is now 100 years old, or almost. It's about to be 100 years old. And so when you're dealing with that, you have to place various different audio production in different parts of the room in order to get that particular radio sound that everybody's familiar with from, like, you know, The Shadow and Fibber McGee and all of those popular shows.
And that's also what I want to mention was something I found very surprising in Funny About Love. But speaking of, you know, finding the right actors for the right characters, is the character is the main character, Gene Wilder's best friend in the movie, who is playing a pediatrician. And for all he seems like he's going to be a creep, he is never actually a creep. We come to understand, why is he single? Because he's a pediatrician, so the only women he's singing have kids and presumably married. And he is not interested in being a creep like that. And at the very beginning, when he, you know, says, when he meets a woman who's very interested in Gene Wilder's character, you know, he says, I'll see what I can do. Can I get your phone number? And, you know, your first thought is, oh, he's just going to use this to harass her later. It's like, no, he actually does talk to Gene Wilder's character of like, hey, I found someone. You know, this is actually a nice, genuine character who is kind and considerate. And, you know, is not a creep. Like, one of the very few times I've ever seen a pediatrician as a main character who is played by a man, and not in a worrisome way.
Mm-hmm. And he also wasn't creepy about women. Like, when he got one woman's phone number who wanted to meet Gene
I was just saying that.
Bucky.
Yeah. Zoned out.
Sorry.
But yeah, like
he asked permission before. And I thought, like, that's kind of surprising. They don't normally.
And he even has very frank discussions with him later on of, you know, because he comes to him going like, I'm not feeling well, I'm doing badly. And he's like, could it be because your mother died recently and you just got divorced?
Get divorced, like, ugh.
Your body's all right.
Here, have a lollipop. Wish they still gave lollipops. Not enough medical people give treats. I will take toys. If I have been good at the dentist office, I should get to go to the toy box.
Agreed.
Yes. But yeah, like, and there's a thing that, like, does keep coming across. I noticed in Gene Wilder movies of, you know, showing you what happens, because he actually had a long career, because he started in the 60s and he acted into the 90s. I
think he actually started in the 50s on stage.
Was it?
Oh yeah, he was on stage a long time before he ever was in movies, dear.
Once he got real pull, he really started to use that to just get the best he could get of a project he was going to be in. He was totally willing to stand back and let someone else do their best acting. Mm-hmm. Like, and we definitely see that with in Funny About Love, with both of the wife of the main female leads. They both get their moments.
If only they could have met each other and had a happy ending.
Yes, if only.
I'm here for the reboot.
You know I would rewrite it that way.
Oh, I know.
Where they're like, oh, look, here's our adopted son. Bye.
And that's what I was actually saying halfway through the movie of, have we not heard about adoption? Because I feel like this is the answer they're not wanting to look at. But they do get to it at the end. That was a nice surprise because almost no other movie I ever see gets to
You
that.
know, this is a fantasy though that she was able to adopt a baby in like less than a 5-year waiting list, let alone less than a 15-year waiting list.
I mean, true, it was a white baby.
She got a white baby? Are you kidding me?
Versus, let's be
Do
honest.
you know how much those babies cost?
Glory, it was early 90s. She was a single, well-to-do
working mother. She had
no, Glory. Well-to-do Jewish woman. As we have seen, and as our own mother kept telling us, like, oh no, it's Asian baby.
Oh yeah.
At that point in time, you get an Asian baby.
Mom was planning to adopt until Dad asked her out and then proposed to her on their first date. But she was planning in the next few years to adopt, and yes, she was already planning. She'd heard that in Asia they don't care if you're single or married; they just care that you can
financially Jewish.
Yes, they don't care that you're Jewish, and that's what other author tubers' mothers did as well. It wasn't just our mother. Look, it was just an entire generation of Jewish women who are like, I'm gonna get me a baby. Did you know Asia doesn't care? They don't understand how what Judaism is, so it's fine. They have not quite invented anti-Semitism yet. What? Yeah.
The world's worst invention.
I don't know. Misogyny sucks. So
death tolls.
Final thoughts, or we have to do a sprint. Which one do you want to do?
Final thoughts.
Okay. Final thoughts. What you got? I have a banner for this. Where is it? There it is. Boop.
Well, for me, being able to look back at Gene Wilder's movies reminded me of just the sheer joy that I used to get going to the movies, and kind of broke me out of some of the funk that I've been dealing with, in that because of the way we do streaming now, because of the way we are releasing film and story, just watching a show feels like work. Because are you up with the new thing? Have you seen the new thing? Are you aware of all of the new things? It feels like a full-time job, just keeping up with all of the things. And when you finally get around to watching them, you're just like, do they even know why they made this? And it's so refreshing to go back and watch all these movies where you're like, even if you don't entirely enjoy them, have that sense of, oh yeah, they knew why they were here. They had a point, they had a purpose, they had a plan. And I feel weird that that's one of my biggest takeaways from all of this. But even when I know that they didn't have a plan, I rewatch Willy Wonka way more than I probably should, because I don't know, when I'm in a dark mood, hearing Gene Wilder scream, "You get nothing!" I have a clip saved on my phone that's just scene, because it never fails to make me laugh. No matter how dark my brain gets, I will start laughing. But just to see people at the top of their game, understanding that they didn't have to pander, they could tell good stories, it feels like watching those people that are living the dream that I've always had, of being able to bring your friends with you to work and do these amazing creative projects that are just astounding. And in so many ways, these movies give me hope. Gene Wilder was able to do it. Granted, I don't have access to a Mel Brooks or any of the other people that he had to help him get to that point. But, maybe we're working on it. But just seeing that the dream is possible gives me so much hope, and reminded me, when I'm working on the characters that I'm working on for the various stories that I do, understanding the voice, casting an actor in your head to play that character so you get the voice right, because the actor brings the character to life. And when it's just you writing, making sure that you have the right actor cast in your brain, delivering the line so that you can catch it the best you can on paper. That's really what this is about for me. And I miss seeing just creativity for the sheer love of creativity. I mean, yeah, commercialism, capitalism, blah, 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 blah. But you could tell that they loved what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that so much anymore. There's a certain point in the mid-90s where that sheer joy of creating seems to have gone away.
I think we call that the MTV-ification
Yeah.
of Hollywood. It doesn't have to have substance anymore. It just has to look good. And they just started hiring, music video directors.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they wanted. But now, a lot of it doesn't hold up over time. Sorry, were you done, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm done.
Right. The other thing I kind of took away from watching this, now that I'm older, and I learned this first about Sam Jackson, and then I've started to notice with other other actors. And it's something that's really good to know. And it's which actors have a creed about their acting. So like Sam Jackson will act in any movie that he feels his, 13-year-old self would want to go watch and see. So, if Sam Jackson's in this movie, this is going to appeal to a 13-year-old black boy from, the 70s.
Yes.
There's no question.
Hence Snakes on a Plane.
Yes. And it's all good. Gene Wilder, if he was in this, it means it spoke to the problems people had and solutions to them. And, let's laugh and mock those who do not want to change. And that is just about every Gene Wilder one once he had some pull. The first couple movies, no, because he's still, having to get his, having to build up his, his weight and his authority. But once he had real authority, that's all he acted in. And so that going in looking for that. I also noticed, because of Another You, that there is no such thing as a movie with Mercedes Rule in it that's not schlock. She only likes to act in movies that are just trashy.
Yes, I did point out Lust of the Dust with Divine and Married to the Mob.
And You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
Yes. Like originally I was talking about Lust of the Dust with Tom of these are my top 3 men who have had female roles that I absolutely approve of, because I did not feel in any way they were mocking or rude to women, that they really were doing their best to give a great portrayal. And Divine in Lust of the Dust. Why did my parents let me watch this as a child? A lot. I feel like they were roasting me.
Divine just cast a magical spell on everyone, and they were just like, I must obey the Divine.
Tab Hunter? Okay, anyway.
Oh, don't even get started on Tab Hunter.
But yeah, it is really good to know which actors have sort of a creed about what movies they are interested in acting, and so if they're in this, what kind of movie you're going to get. I mean, let's be honest though, at this point, if Timothée Chalamet's in it, it's because it's going to look really good. That's all. That's the only thing he gets cast for / he seems interested is what he will look good in. Whether it's Dune or Wes Anderson's, I can't remember the name of that newspaper movie.
All I'm hearing you say,
looking it up.
All I hear you say is that Timothée Chalamet is the Instagram of movies.
Yes. I mean,
French Dispatch.
You're not wrong.
Have you seen The French Dispatch?
It's so good.
It's a good movie, but it definitely feels a bit Instagram.
Like, I thought, oh, wait, I do like Timothée Chalamet, because I actually liked him in French Dispatch.
But I mean, that's what he played.
And that is the role they gave him in French Dispatch, and I approve. He sleeps with Frances McDormand, and it goes about how you would expect it to. Yeah, and I am okay with this. I am absolutely, as a woman who is now the age Frances McDormand is supposed to be portraying, I approve. And also, yes, his manifesto needed editing. I also hold to this.
But I mean, but it helps once you do that, like, and that's the other part Charlie, I think, was also talking about with the greatness of having acting troops is you know that they are all interested in this type of product. So whenever they show up together, you know you're going to get that. You know, when you see certain of Kevin Smith's groups show up together in a Kevin Smith movie, you're going to get
yes.
this.
You're going to get the View Askew universe.
Yes.
I watched so many movies because Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara were in them because I knew, if nothing else, they will make me laugh.
Yes.
And possibly cry.
But if it's
definitely laugh.
But if Catherine O'Hara is not there with Eugene Levy, it's not the same. It's not
the
same.
But yeah, there's just something about when you get those two together in a movie. It's like, go on.
In the same room, and it's like, I'll watch. Y'all could talk about the phone book. I don't care.
Right? Where's the podcast? I need the podcast.
I just them talking about their day and what they bought at the grocery store. I don't care. Whatever. Tell me about like the problem you're having with moles in your backyard. I want to hear it. You know, and then the dog, and now the cat's involved, and the moles keep taunting the cats. I want to hear about this.
It would be fabulous.
Fun fact, that actually happened to us. The mole was taunting our dog and cat in the backyard. It lived under the birch tree, so that's why we couldn't get to its home. We didn't want to destroy the tree, because the tree was... Okay, the tree was haunted, and okay, that's a whole nother matter, but it doesn't matter.
But yeah, I was nicely reminded of there is a lot of good Gene Wilder movies. Not all of them.
No, not all of them are necessarily, although I would say all of them are art.
Yes, they are definitely all art.
Except maybe Sherlock's Smarter Brother. I know that that's art, but it is funny as hell. Hello, Noah. Umbrella Cat is Wes Anderson meets The Incredibles. Great.
You're not wrong.
I cannot wait. Please let there be a fourth season. Oh my God. What will Klaus do next? I don't know, but I'm here for it.
What will Klaus do next? And how will, what's his name, ruin it for everyone?
Oh, yeah. The little Altacocker?
Well, okay, no, I was actually thinking of the violinist.
Oh, what is his name? Why can't?
I can just, all I'm hearing is Elliot Page in the back of my head, and that's not helpful.
Yeah, Elliot Page is not helpful. It's close.
Yeah, how will Elliot Page's character ruin this for everyone? Because, man, that character...
Victor, yeah, it's like, oh God, what is it?
How will Victor ruin these plans for everyone else?
I mean, why? Why, Victor? Why, honey? Why is it you figured out yourself and you're still a chaotic demon of destruction? Not every solution is Kali. Okay, like, honey, slow the roll.
Umbrella Academy to me can be summed up in one general idea. What if there were a universe where mad scientists were real and therapy had not been invented?
I thought that was the Marvel universe.
There.
I don't know. Banner goes to therapy.
That wasn't Allison, although she definitely did not help. That was still actually Victor, because remember, Victor temporarily put some of his power into what's his name, the kid, who grew up to then kill off so many of the mothers of.
Yeah.
So no, it was still Victor. It's always Victor's fault. What the absolute fuck, Victor? Ugh.
That's why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. You know what? I feel that way about my own family, so.
Yes, and the next season, the Aldercocker will spend the entire season trying to keep Victor from, destroying the universe. But yes, Klaus is always right.
Klaus is always right. And why is it always Victor's fault? I don't know.
And never even ask the himbo for an opinion.
And how is 5 going to fix it / ruin it further? I love that little Altacocker. Oh God, he's just so Burned out on the world. Mwah. No notes. Yeah. That family's so messed up. They make my family look functional. I love
Because
it.
Allison doesn't want to give up Luther. That's why.
Yeah, she wants her cake and to eat it too. Well, honey, guess what? You need to either learn to roll with it, you get your daughter, or you get Luther, but they're mutually exclusive, honey.
Clear your schedules, sir. I feel like you've just volunteered to be on next season of Creative Recharge, where we tear through Umbrella Academy in an entire episode. I feel like that's what I'm seeing happen here. Like, this is foreshadowing.
I have so many opinions.
Hopefully by that point, also Doom Patrol will have released the last couple episodes.
Yeah, so Doom Patrol, please, Lord, finish these episodes. I need to see how the show ends. Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy. Oh, that is my crack. Yes, respect your husband's autonomy and choices. Agreed. I absolutely agree. These people.
I will pass the hat around so we can get you a babysitter so that both of the Spences can sit in on this episode, because I feel like we need all of your hot takes in real time with voice and hopefully animated camera hand gesturing.
I agree. It did piss me off as well, because she's messing up time. Anyway, that whole family. Of course, you saw the man who raised them, and everything makes sense.
How is he still the most messed up of everyone?
Yes, I agree, Spence. I'm here with you, honey.
I love it. Stream. I would be here for a stream of like discordant screaming. Like, it'll be fine.
And hopefully, and also by that point, we will have a new season of Doctor Who.
Ooh. You mean a non-turfy season? I can hope for things. I can hope for things. It's gonna be great. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so let's see. My final thoughts of Gene Wilder. When you are looking to understand that you are self-censoring, Gene Wilder and watching his acting and his storytelling are an excellent way to check yourself for self-censorship. Because Gene is definitely somebody who does not hold back, and he's not self-censoring. The rest of us have all been beaten down by life, and I'm not saying people didn't try to beat Gene Wilder down. Oh, they definitely did. He has talked about it rather openly, about the bullying and sexual assault he experienced at a military academy his mother sent him to when he was a young teenager, being the only Jewish boy at, I think it's called Fox Black Military Academy in LA. So, yeah. But he does not hold back. And like, I self-censor all the time. I never let loose. I never just scream it out. And Tom will even beg me, please, Gloria, just scream it out. You will feel better if you just like, no. And like, nobody lives around us anymore. I could do it and not have to alert the neighbors that we're all fine. Nobody's murdered. And still, like, no, I self-censor. So Gene Wilder is an excellent way to really see, am I being too self-censoring here? Because sometimes the answer to the problem is you need to just let it out. Whether we're talking tears or screams or whatever, you just sometimes need to let it out, because I promise you the world won't end if you do. And yet we self-censor like it will end if we just let go. Take our foot off the pedal and just be messy. Just be messy for a minute. Gene Wilder, what he really brings to the art of the medium, he is not afraid to be messy in front of the camera, off of the camera, behind the scenes. He is not afraid to be messy. There is a genius and a brilliance in that. And something that I think us as creatives could definitely take away from that, about don't be afraid to get messy. The story doesn't have to make sense yet. You're still in the writing and editorial process. It don't have to be messy. I mean, it doesn't have to be clean or sensible or easy to follow till publishing. No, it says sometimes I listen to Heavy by Linkin Park on purpose because I need to cry. Yes. Oh yeah, I got some triggering music too. Of
Same.
it's important for us as creative people to allow ourselves to get messy from time to time, whether we're talking about in the process or just in life. And I know, like, as creatives, the process, I love when Futurama's like, well, I would rather die than you talk about the process anymore. Like, yeah, there's a point there.
Or The Good Place.
Yes, not the process. But there is a certain truth to that. As creatives, we can easily get out of balance and be too orderly, too controlled. And sometimes we get too messy or too just emotionally terrorizing others. So again, balance is important, but it's very easy to go too far one way or the other. And I think often as creatives, we go too far into the organizing and the controlled, and then we don't understand why we're not feeling inspired because you're not being messy enough. You got to make that table look all messy. That's what I have to used to tell my students when I was teaching art classes. And even my older students, the geriatrics I used to teach art classes to, of stop trying to keep your workspace clean while you make something artistic or inspiring to yourself. Get messy. I always leave 20 minutes at the end of every class for us to actually clean up and put everything away. So there's plenty of time for us to clean up. Get messy right now in your creative process and don't worry about what it looks like. Worry about what you're doing and does it feel right? And then we'll clean up at the end. Don't worry. And like, if you could see my students, it was like a burden was lifted from them, that they no longer felt internal pressure to keep it clean or nice looking in the process, but rather, oh, no, don't worry. I've set aside time. We have time to clean later. And they're just like, oh, I really can get y'all there. I'm trying to clean paint off of like 80-year-olds because they got messy. Oh my God. Do they know how to get messy? But like, they're so happy because finally they could just let go. I feel like us as adults need that as well. So that is what I really was happily reminded from Gene Wilder of: when you are making art, when you are making craft, get messy, but just save a little time at the end of your time span to clean up. And that way you won't feel guilty or bad later when you see a terrible mess of, oh, no, I cleaned that up. It's fine.
It's true.
So, what to expect on next Monday's episode?
Chaos.
So we're going to do 2 months of Writers Roundtable. You know it. I love it. I hope y'all love it too. It is essentially, we know what writer skills are: writing, storytelling, character development. Sure, all those things are great. But Writers Roundtable is about all the other skills and information and knowledge writers need to be writers, to be successful writers. Suggestions that have been made so far, hold on, I'm pressing the wrong buttons, is an episode on Substack and the magic of Substack. Episode on research and reference skills for writers. Or you could just have your very own research reference librarian. I am available and I have very reasonable rates in the sense that I work for donations. Someone talked about talking about Fiverr, both the hiring and the being hired sides of Fiverr, including hiring for various jobs: illustrator, cover illustrator, developmental editor, formatter, and copy editor. Not necessarily all on Fiverr, but just like hiring somebody to help you with various parts of essentially the publishing process. Marketing and promotion, platforms that bring eyeballs. Freemium model, which Charlie's going to talk about, definitely, because I'm not as familiar with, but I definitely want to know. And in general, finding your audience. How to make YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, TikTok videos for as long as we have TikTok. Who knows? No promises. And in general, what is success for writers? If anyone has any other suggestions for episodes, please let me know in the comments, in my DMs, on my various other live streams, because we still have at least 3 more spaces. But I like all these. Or if you'd like to join us on screen, we absolutely would love to have you. Let me know. And we'll try to figure out scheduling, because obviously no dates have been set for these. So now's your time. Also, thank you for still being here. I'm impressed. Hope you're impressed that you made it this far.
And if you want to help us figure out truly what we will be talking about on Monday, well, show up Wednesday on Twitch, as we have to make at least decisions about Monday.
Yes. We meet every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Eastern whatever time, for 2 hours. We do sprints, and we get the show up and running. We'd love to have you join us. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Memberships are available. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.